Happy Victory Monday and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you to celebrate an AFC championship game win for the Kansas City Chiefs. 5 consecutive AFC championship game appearances, 3 wins, and that means a third appearance in half a decade in the Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs. They will take on the Philadelphia Eagles, and we've got narratives, we've got storylines for days, and thankfully for weeks, because we've now got 2 weeks of buildup before Super Bowl 57. So much to get to from yesterday. All the great performances, the big win, the smack talk, especially after the game. It's a good thing that the Chiefs have 2 weeks here, because, man, if it was like a week away, if Super Bowl Sunday was next Sunday, I don't know that the Chiefs would emotionally be ready for it, because I don't know that they would have any emotional energy left after expending it all post-game and during the game yesterday. But they take down the Cincinnati Bengals in dramatic fashion because, of course, a game between those two teams came down to drama at the end of the contest. We will talk about all of it. Matt Verderame of Fansided.com is going to join us later on this hour for our weekly chat about all things NFL. We'll get his perspective on the Chiefs win and on the Eagles win as well. We'll talk a little Eagles today because they picked up a dominant win in the NFC Championship game. Granted, that game, what do you do with that game? Like,
nothing.
Someone asked George Kittle, 49ers tight end, what was it like playing in this game without a quarterback? And he said, what was it like playing in this game without a quarterback? Well, it was bleep, but you can probably figure out that it was what would that be? 6-letter S word. Okay. That has to get bleeped out. So you can guess what he was saying. Like Brock Purdy couldn't throw.
Yeah. It ceased to be a competitive football game the minute they put a quarterback in who could not throw the football. Like, that was it. That was the end of the competitive portion of the game. And you can argue the end came earlier when Purdy left in the first place and the 49ers had to turn to Sacramento Mountain Lions legend Josh Johnson.
I said this during the game, during that NFC Championship game. There is a degree of truly just amazing, how did this happen, believe in yourself and keep working, because at some point you'll get to new heights. Josh Johnson's played for, 14 different professional football franchises?
Something like that.
Been in the NFL 15 years. He was signed a couple of weeks ago, and the ultimate journeyman got to play in an NFC Championship game. That is honestly incredible and so cool for him. And at the same time, it pretty much guaranteed that franchise's season was over.
It went so poorly.
So badly.
As soon as he fumbled and Philadelphia scored before the half, that was really the end of the competitive portion of the football game. And the 49ers couldn't even pretend to mount a comeback. So it was a weird game and it was a dull game. But on the plus side, it gave me a lot of time to get a little cleaning done, get my laundry folded and everything.
Get you ready for the nightcap.
And get us prepared for a banger of an AFC Championship game, which is what we got. It was weird. It was wild. It was unpredictable. For the 4th time in a row between these two teams, it came down to who had the ball last.
Yeah, it was an absolute blast. And again, we'll break down all of it coming up here to lead off the show. We'll get to more of it coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Matt Verderame joins us bottom of this hour. We've also got plenty of other big stuff to get to on the show today. It is semifinal Monday for January in What Is Wrong With You. It's the second to last day of the month, which means we've got semifinals to get to in What Is Wrong With You. Our semifinalists what a way to open up the year, by the way. The 911 Burglars, the B-Dubs Dine and Dash, the Ribeye Robin Hood, and the Speedway Stupidity. A lot of alliteration and a lot of great stories. That's coming up at 4:20. We'll get to some college basketball because there were a couple big games this weekend. KU snapped its losing skid in a very impressive game against Kentucky. K-State's win against Florida was impressive in a different way. Florida sucks, okay?
Yeah, pretty bad.
I trust Ken Pomeroy. Not this time. I don't want to see the metrics. I don't care. That team sucks.
That's what an offense that's not top 100 in the country looks like.
Yeah, gross. It was so bad. But we will get to a little of that. We'll obviously talk more basketball tomorrow because the Sunflower Showdown is coming up tomorrow. Biggest game of the year for both teams. So that's coming up more tomorrow, but we will get to this weekend's action a little bit later on in the show today. Some Royals news as well. All of that is coming up over the course of the next 3 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. We would love for you to be a part of the show. here on 580 Sports Talk. You can hit us up on the Big O Tires text line, as always. 785-272-9429 is the text line number, and the comment section is wide open for you on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is our channel. Comment, let us know whatever you're thinking about anything we're talking about. By the way, real quick pitch and real quick plug. Last night, half an hour, right after the game ended, myself, Dan, Jake, Fulton, the entire Sports on 580 crew, we went on, live streamed on our YouTube channel, again, Sports on 580 WIBW, did an instant recap of the game, hit all the highlights, all the storylines going into the Super Bowl. You can find that on YouTube right now. Would love for you to go check that out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because we're getting ready for a Super Bowl, and we've got this brand new YouTube channel. You know we're going to have a lot of content coming your way. So go subscribe right now. Best way possible to be ready for all of our web content as we get ready for Super Bowl 57. But let's get to AFC Championship game circa 2023 yesterday. The Chiefs beat the Bengals 23-20. Yesterday, when we were doing our post-game show on YouTube, I asked all of you guys, what was the play of the game? What was the number one play that sticks out in your mind for being a turning point, for just being an incredible play, whatever? So I'll take a different angle on this here, Dan, because in a game that is so close, that had so many big plays, that had so many big-time performances by both teams. I mean, Joe Burrow's numbers didn't look great, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, but I thought he played a pretty darn good game overall.
Made a couple of monster throws.
Mahomes was awesome. Chris Jones was the best player on the field by a mile, and that was with Patrick Mahomes being awesome. What was the turning point of the game? What was the one thing that game hinged on that by falling one direction or the other led the Chiefs more than anything else to victory? Because I think you can probably point to a few different things. Which one stands out to you the most?
Gosh, that's a very tough thing to pin down when you're talking about a game that really felt like it was in the balance until Joseph Osai's 15-yard penalty on Patrick Mahomes' third down scramble with less than 10 seconds to play. I mean, as Patrick Mahomes is running out of bounds on that play, who was going to win the game was completely up in the air. And then the 15-yard penalty gave Harrison Butker a real chance. I didn't realize watching it live, it looked like he kicked the bejesus out of that ball, and it would have been good from like 60. Mm-hmm. The wind and the cold knocked that ball down almost as it got to the net. Like, that ball had that much steam on it and not much else.
Romo mentioned that when they showed the replays, that, oh, man, this wouldn't have been good before the penalty. And I thought, Romo, what are you talking about? He rocked that ball. Then they showed the camera angle from the crossbar, and I thought, oh, damn, Tony was right. He was absolutely right. That did not have much leeway.
Yeah, he missed a couple of things last night on the broadcast. He was spot on there. So that was obviously, I mean, if you're looking at the play that decided the game, it's that. But I really think that the way this game unfolded, the terms in which this game was contested were set when the Chiefs were able to dominate the line of scrimmage with their pass rush early in the contest. When the Chiefs were able to go out and sack Joe Burrow on 3 consecutive dropbacks. I think they had 4 sacks in the first half in total, but they got 3 on 3 straight dropbacks on Cincinnati's first 2 drives. And I think what that did was it changed what Cincinnati felt like it could do on offense the rest of the game. You saw it. They had to put as many as 2 guys in the backfield next to Joe Burrow because they could not protect him against a 4-man rush with the 5 guys they had up front, because Chris Jones was absolutely beasting. That was the greatest performance in a career that's starting more to look a little more and more Canton-ish, if you know what I mean, for Chris Jones. Like, if he's giving an induction speech at the Pro Football Hall of Fame someday, this will be the game that comes to mind. No question about it. He was incredible. But Frank Clark came out firing, had an early sack. Mike Dana played a brilliant game.
Especially in the first half. In the first half, when the teams were still kind of in that feeling out process, I know Jones flashed early, Clark flashed early. Mike Dana looked great. And that is the piece the Chiefs have been looking for, right, all year. And Karlaftis has been that. But at this stage, it doesn't really matter who it is. You just need those guys to step up. All the props in the world to Mike Dana, because he was invaluable yesterday, especially in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, he was big time. George Karlaftis had a sack. So that early burst from the Chiefs front changed what the Bengals wanted to do on offense. Took them out of their ability to use the running game because the Chiefs were able to take a lead, so they couldn't run the ball and be physical the way they were against the Bills last week. And it took away not all, but a good number of the deep passes and the deep options that the Bengals had. And altering the Bengals offense in that way made it hard for them to move the ball for the bulk of the 60 minutes. And then it all kind of came back at the very end when Chris Jones records that third down sack. Even after a slip and a miscommunication allowed the Bengals to pick up a 3rd and 16 on that last drive that they had, they are still able, the Chiefs are, to get off the field with the Jones sack on that 3rd down. We talked about it all week. Pressure and getting Burrow on the ground were going to be the keys. If the Chiefs didn't do that, they had no chance to win. They gave themselves a chance right from Jump Street, and Chris Jones' sack set the table for the game-winning march. That, to me, was the most pivotal portion of the game.
I think it's easy to point to probably the penalty where Joseph Ossai shoved Patrick Mahomes while he was way out of bounds. I mean, that's the most obvious one because it's a fascinating situation if there's no penalty there. They got the first down, so they could have run another. I think they would have had time for one more play probably to try to set things up because there was only 8 seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, you throw a quick out, you gain like 5 to 7 yards there.
Mm-hmm.
Then, okay, you're still talking about a 53-yarder. And both coaches felt like the range for their kickers was 50 and in.
They kept mentioning that Butker was short from 55 in pregame. That's crazy for that dude's leg.
Yeah.
That he was short from 55.
And you could tell the kickoffs all night weren't traveling like they would generally travel. A lot of short kickoffs. It was hard to kick that football last night. So you're not counting on the field goal at that point. And Joseph Ossai makes a dumb play. I mean, I know that there are people who, look, I feel for him as a human because that's a gut-wrenching way to lose a championship game. And you saw the pain and the sadness on the sideline for Ossai, who's just 22 years old. Like I feel bad for him on a human level, but that is a penalty 100 times out of 100, the play that he made. That's never not going to get flagged. People who say, well, the officials shouldn't have decided the game. Deciding the game as the officials would have been to not throw that flag because that's a flag you throw every single time it happens, especially when it happens to a quarterback. Yeah. When they got 2 feet out of bounds and they get shoved, that is a penalty. So that to me, like, I'm sure we'll cover officiating a little later on when we talk about this game, maybe even in good, bad, ugly, and it won't be in the good.
Mm-hmm.
But that controversy is not a controversy to me. Like that's a flag you got to throw. And it did. It was a very fortuitous flag for the Chiefs.
Yeah, my bad for just tease it right now. I was going to deal more with the discourse about officiating than the officiating itself, but there was so much more that decided this game than some potentially bad. And was the officiating bad? Yeah, it sucked. It was absolute garbage all night long. But wasn't real good in the NFC game either. It hasn't been real good all year. No, it hasn't been. And there is so much more that decided this game. Like the second Chris Jones sack, that was huge. You want to give me something that really decided this game? The fact that the Bengals couldn't convert on that last 3rd down on their final possession and had to punt it back to the Chiefs. I would say most, not all, but most people, at least from my social media or from my friends or whatever, when the Chiefs punted back to the Bengals, and I know the Bengals took over at their own 7-yard line, but when they punted away, there was a lot of, oh my God, we just punted to Joe Burrow. Like that's worrisome. That is concerning. Even though the Chiefs defense had played really well over the balance of the game, there is an element of, oh my God, we just punted inside our own 40-yard line or the opponent's 40-yard line for the second time in the game. Like that usually comes back to bite Andy Reid coach teams when you get hyper conservative like that.
Here's the thing about that. I was totally fine with it for 2 reasons. Number one, they weren't in field goal range. Mm-hmm. And if you kick that field goal and you miss, it's not a coin flip's chance on that field goal. It's probably less than a coin flip's chance. If you miss it, Cincinnati's got the ball at their own 44 with an eternity to work with. And you don't want to give Joe Burrow that kind of field position. Mm-hmm. You want to make him go 55, 60 yards. You don't want to make him go 30. The other part is this. I know it's 4th and 8, and I know your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, but it's Patrick Mahomes on a bad leg throwing to wide receiver 2, wide receiver 6, Marcus Kemp, and Travis Kelce, who's going to be double teamed. So, like, I don't know that you could have trusted somebody to get open for the 8 yards that the Chiefs would have needed to move the sticks on that one play. So I was totally fine. If the Chiefs didn't have a play they felt comfortable gaining 8 yards on, or didn't feel comfortable with Mahomes improvising something for 8 yards, yeah, punt it, make the Bengals go 60 yards.
And they couldn't. And
yeah.
That's, to me, and I know it's late in the game, and, well, yeah, obviously plays at the end of the game in a close game, they make a big difference. They had their chance. That was overtime, essentially. When the Chiefs punted the ball away, that was your overtime period. It was the Bengals got the ball. They couldn't make it happen. The Chiefs got it, and we were in a next score wins situation, and the Chiefs made it happen. And you feel, on a human level, I feel so bad for Joseph Asai. I really do. He was the best defensive player that Cincinnati had.
Yeah, he had an awesome game.
He was awesome, and then unfortunately that happens. But by the same token, he's been in the league. He played major college football not all that long ago. Those things get called, especially nowadays in football.
You two-hand shove a guy along the sideline, they're out of bounds. That is a penalty. There's no controversy there.
So, yeah, the end of game scenario there in which the Chiefs made enough plays, the Bengals did not. It's just the script flipped from the last 3 games, right? That at the end of the game, the Bengals made the better plays, the bigger plays in the first 3 meetings over the last 2 years. This time, the Chiefs made the bigger play. And it felt, for most of that fourth quarter, like it was trending the other way. And that has to come back on the Bengals as well for not being able to get it done. And it's not just a Burrow thing. It's not just a Zach Taylor thing or any individual. But look, you ended up with a couple of gifts in that quarter. You got that punt with the ball and about 2 minutes left. Granted, again, at your own 7-yard line, but you got that opportunity. They did end up scoring on that Mahomes fumble late in the third quarter, which, by the way, if the Chiefs had lost, oh man, they're going to start remaking Football Follies VHS tapes, and that's going to be the only thing on it, okay?
Yeah.
Like that could have been all-time bad.
Yeah, that could have been defining for Mahomes and not in a good way.
No. But they got those opportunities. They couldn't get it. They had multiple drives in the fourth quarter. I believe it was in the fourth quarter when Burrow threw the second pick.
Yes.
Which, granted, was a great play by Brian Cook, who had a day to forget until that play, and Josh Williams had to catch the ball too. They had their chances, and they couldn't get it done. And that is just the role reversal from the last 3 meetings, where it was back and forth all game, close. Who's going to make the big play? Mm-hmm. This time it was the Chiefs.
And the Chiefs outplayed them in this game, and they deserved the break. And then they did get it, and they were able to capitalize on it. And they're able to capitalize on it for one reason, and it's because they have the best football player in the world. I mean, it comes back to Patrick Mahomes. This guy on one leg, this guy throwing to he got 3 healthy wide receivers by the end of the game. His top target, Travis Kelce's, A, being double teamed every play, and B, on a bad back. Mahomes can't move, can't roll out, can't run, can't improvise the way that he's used to being able to do. You can't stack the deck anymore against a player than the deck felt stacked against Patrick Mahomes last night. And yet, there he was at the end, hoisting the Lamar Hunt trophy for a 3rd time. Like, there's not a worthwhile debate to be had anymore. There are other good to very good to even great quarterbacks in the NFL. We saw one last night in Joe Burrow. There are other ones like Josh Allen, obviously. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers has been great in his career. Tom Brady's the greatest. But there's only one Patrick Mahomes. They made one of him. And his ability to overcome what he overcame last night. The personal challenges, the challenges of the depth chart, the challenge of having to beat this team that you'd lost to 3 straight times, that came in on a 10-game winning streak with all that confidence. Mm-hmm. For Patrick Mahomes to do that, like, it feels useless to say, oh, he's certified now. No kidding, he's certified. He's going to have 2 MVPs, a ring, 3 AFC championship game victories, and he might add a 2nd ring here in 2 weeks. We are witnessing one of the great careers in the history of professional sports with Patrick Mahomes. We are witnessing one of the greatest athletes ever on a weekly basis, in number 15 in the red and the gold. There's no disputing it. There's no worthwhile argument. If you hear an argument against it, if you hear somebody open their mouth to say that there's somebody better than that guy, that there's somebody in the same league as that guy, turn it off. Turn off your radio, turn off your TV, put noise-canceling headphones on, delete the podcast, whatever it is you got to do. Don't listen to it. You know, if you've got 2 working eyes and a working brain, you know, number 15, he's special. He's the reason for all of this. He's the best we've ever seen.
Can we once again point out how stupid all the Tyreek Hill takes were last offseason? Can we take a moment to reflect on? I mean, I'm saying that because I know I was right about that from the very beginning. I know you were right about that. I feel like that carries a little weight when we do, since neither of us are like lifelong Chiefs fans. I like the Chiefs. I like when the Chiefs win for sure, but like I don't have an emotional attachment to this team. And I knew from the beginning, every time that, Bart Scott or whatever other idiot talking head was like,
James Jones.
He was their whole offense. Shut the hell up. No, he was not. Watch the game. Actually watch the game, and you will see it. Because you know what? If you actually watched that game yesterday, and you're not, Johnny come lately with, oh, well, actually, there was plenty of holding, and there were lots of missed calls, whatever. If you actually know ball, and you actually watched that game, you saw greatness. Not just from Patrick Mahomes either, although he obviously was great. You saw it from Andy Reid. You saw it from Steve Spagnuolo. He was great calling up the defense yesterday. Blitzes were perfectly timed all game. His guys were playing tremendously, and that's not, all to Spags' credit. Obviously, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, all the guys in the secondary, they deserve that too.
The kids in the secondary.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And you know what the funny thing is? Not really funny, I guess, but one of the things that really stands out, another one of those kind of flashpoint moments from the game, fourth quarter, Bengals have a third down. It must have been on their last drive. It was on the one where they punted. Hayden Hurst gets wide open on the near sideline. Burrow hits him, huge gap. That's a big play. That was another one of those, oh my God, they're doing it again kind of plays. Just like the fourth down to Jamar Chase at the start of the fourth quarter, like the Mahomes fumble, it was the here we go again play. And I even put on Twitter something that I was worried about. You heard me say this all throughout the middle part of the season after the Fenton trade. Like, I like these dudes, but they're really young. They have not been in this situation before. They've only been with Spags since May. Like, in a big situation, what is it going to look like? And on that play, when somebody did the wrong thing, that was not the designed defensive play there, I thought, well, there you go. I mean, that's what I was worried about. They bounced back, and they held they held the Bengals there, forced them to punt. Chiefs won the game. That's coaching, that's resilience, and that's just dudes, man. That's just having the right guys at the right time.
That's championship medal. That's championship pride is what that is. We talked about that a little bit with Mitch Holtis last week. The pride that these veterans have. They have won a ring. They have been to the mountaintop. They want to get back. And you can feel that. You could feel that urgency. You could feel that desperation. You could sense that pride last night when they walked off the field with that trophy, and they're cutting wrestling promos on the mayor of Cincinnati and smoking that Joe Burrow pack, which I think you could probably smell all the way to Manhattan. It was a phenomenal night of football, and it's the kind of thing that burnishes the reputation of the Chiefs as great champions and the team at the top of the mountain.
We'll get some more on this game, obviously, throughout the show, including with Matt Verderame coming up at the bottom of this hour. Right now, we do need to get to our first commercial break. We'll come back. We'll get to the good, the bad, and the ugly on this championship Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. are recapping the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. I'm going to go away from the AFC Championship game for my good, just because that's a kind of a well-duh answer. My good, it was Royal Rumble weekend, my favorite wrestling weekend of the year. The men's match, give it a solid B+. The women's match, a B. Main event was awesome. Bloodline and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, some of my favorites. So, great wrestling weekend. Love the Royal Rumble.
My good. Yesterday was Kansas Day.
Yeah, it was.
It was Kansas Day yesterday, and that means it was a Kansas weekend, and everybody got to celebrate something. KU a winner, K-State a winner, Wichita State basketball got a dub over East Carolina on the road, and, of course, the Chiefs are heading back to the Super Bowl for the third time in 4 years. They couldn't lose on Kansas Day.
No. Even though, Kansas City, Missouri, whatever. Most of the Metro.
Kansas is in the name. It's close enough.
Yeah, it's the Metro. Who cares? My bad for the weekend. It's the discussion points after yesterday's game and this morning. I came into work early this morning. I had to get some stuff ready for the 580 Preps Coaches Club coming up tonight. Had an early interview to do to schedule for the show today. So I was in early. I was on Twitter early today. And immediately, just my social media flooded with the Pete Priscos and the Bill Simmons of the world. Oh, look at this holding. Look at all these holding calls. One, y'all don't know ball. Two, sorry you lost your bet, Bill. That doesn't make it any more right or wrong. Like, could you be any more apparent about what you bet a lot of money on? Third, can we talk about the game? Can we please ignore the grand conspiracy stuff and just talk about football? Talk about, hey, why did the Bengals convert on a third down? Why did Joe Burrow throw the ball in the dirt, not anywhere near a receiver? And if you think that wasn't intentional grounding, man, I will defend Joe Burrow more than pretty much anyone else who's not a Bengals fan. That was obviously intentional grounding. Can we please talk about the game? Can we please talk about football? The nonsense stuff, the older I get, the BS nonsense, I hate it more and more. Just talk about the game, because there's enough to last us for weeks just talking about the game itself, not conspiracy nonsense.
Yeah, we had to hear Bengals fans and players talk all week about, hey, they got to play us in Burrowhead. And at the end of the game, it's, it was rigged. The NFL is rigged against us. Poor little Cincinnati. The NFL is rigged. They rigged that game because nobody heard an official blow a whistle on a third down play that got redone and ended up not really impacting the game all that much, or the intentional grounding on a play that didn't really affect the game all that much because the Bengals got a first down later on. No, that's just Bengals fans going out sad. Anybody who knows ball knows there's only one NFL game that's ever been rigged, and that was Super Bowl 40. That game was absolutely rigged. Every other game, even Steven. Sometimes the rest are just bad. And NFL officiating has been in a bad spot this year. All year, it's been iffy. And it was, again, you saw some iffy officiating in the NFC game as well. But no, it's not a grand conspiracy to take down the Cincinnati Bengals. Believe me, if there were going to be a conspiracy to elevate a media market, it wouldn't be Kansas City, Missouri.
No, not at all. The Rams would have somehow been in the Super Bowl again, okay?
Rams, Chargers every year. Giants, Jets.
Right. Unbelievable. Is that your bad too?
Yeah, that was my bad.
Real quick, ugly for me. You want to talk about going out sad? Hey, Trent Williams, take a lap, pal. Yikes. Those 49ers were pissed at the end of that game. Understandably so, but also maybe don't pick a fight at the end of the game.
Yeah, Trent Williams, all-time sore loser. He punched Richard Sherman in the face after a playoff game when he played for Washington.
I remember that.
And Seattle beat him in the playoffs. That was the game RG3's knee exploded. And, he punched Richard Sherman in the face, which I know a lot of people probably wish they would have punched Richard Sherman in the face during his playing days. But still, just, take that L and leave with some dignity. And Trent Williams unable to do that. My ugly was just that entire game. I've done high school football games in my life where there's a team a small school team, and they run the power I, and they get behind 3 touchdowns in the second half, and the game's over because they don't have passing plays. They're not going to come back with 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You're toast. It was a non-competitive championship game, and those are always a bummer.
We've got to take a break. Matt Verderame joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk with Matt Verderame of Fansided.com, national NFL writer and insider. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. You can find all of his tremendous work covering all things NFL over at Fansided.com. Celebrating and breaking down all of the championship games from around the NFL this weekend. And Matt, first things first, before we break down the Chiefs game in particular, is this the most excited that the NFL fan base should be for the Super Bowl in a long time? Not necessarily because of players or team brand or anything, but the fact that we got both number one seeds. We, in all likelihood, got the undisputed two best teams in the NFL. That's got to count for something and got to bring up the level of excitement, right?
Yeah, I think we got the two best teams. I mean, they both won 14-3. You got the two best quarterbacks in terms of first and second team All-Pros. It's great. It's exciting. The Eagles have been phenomenal all year long. The Chiefs have gone on. I think it's one of those things where I really think you look at it, like you said, it's hard to argue that these aren't the two best teams in the NFL. Certainly the Niners were great. They had a lot of injuries on Sunday. The Bengals would have been deserving had they gotten there. But yeah, I think right now, Kansas City and Philadelphia, it's hard to argue that that's not the best possible.
As for the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl for the third time in the Reid-Mahomes era, which is just absolutely unbelievable. That game with the Bengals yesterday, late afternoon, early evening, what was the biggest difference maker in the game? Whether it was a player performance, whether it was a certain play, or just a general theme of the game, what is the one thing above anything else that swung that in the direction of the Chiefs?
The resilience. I think it was the resilience, and I think with that resilience, I would normally say experience, which I think did help them, but a lot of the guys who stepped for the Chiefs yesterday were rookies. I mean, guys who had never been in that spot. There's no way you could ever expect to be in that spot. Listen, we got to talk about Mahomes and overcoming the ankle and Kelsey with his back and all that. They lose Juju, Cole Hardman, and Tony during the game. Willie Gay goes out. Snead, I think, what did he last? 2 plays? And got a concussion, and they just kept going. They kept plugging away. They were throwing the ball to Marcus Kemp and Noah Gray, Jody Ford, and it just didn't matter. I think a lot of teams, maybe with less experience, they would have panicked. Chiefs never panicked. They never really blinked. Guys kept coming in and stepping up and making plays, and those rookies especially. I mean, look at all that they got yesterday from the rookies. 2 interceptions. Pacheco almost has 100 total yards. Carl Loftus has a sack. Brian Cook forced an interception, almost forced 2. It was a masterclass by the rookies, and it was a masterclass by Brett Veach. Put them all in position to succeed.
So many great performances from the rookie class, and we'll get to Patrick Mahomes too, because doing all that on a clearly damaged maybe isn't the right word, but an ankle that was clearly bothering him, even if he wasn't trying to make it seem that way. A lot of great performances. But the best player on the field yesterday, Matt, was number 95 in red, Chris Jones. You could tell from the very beginning he took that game extremely personally, and he comes out and doesn't just have the best playoff game of his life. That might have been the best game of his career, period. 2 sacks. He blows up that play at the goal line at the end of the second quarter. Do you think that was the best game of Chris Jones' career on the biggest stage yet?
Yes. Yeah, I do think it was the best game of Jones' career. When you factor in the stage, the Bengals doubled him on almost every play, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter what they did. I mean, not only did he get 2 sacks, he drew 2 holding penalties. He had tackles for loss on the run game. He was everywhere. Nothing Cincinnati could stop him. Nothing. They couldn't double him. They tripled him at times. That didn't help. He was a man to death. Look, when he made his comment at the very end of his presser on Friday about, hey, see you guys in Burrowhead, you knew he was going to be keyed up. Then they showed him during the anthem, he was crying. I mean, here's a guy who's pretty jovial. Like, he's pretty relaxed. As you guys know, and maybe some of your viewers know, I do the Arrowhead Alley podcast over Fansided. Like, he missed a game last year with COVID against the Chargers, and they won that game in dramatic fashion. He came on the podcast impromptu and was just bouncing around his house. He was so excited they won. And that's who he is as a person. And when I saw him during the anthem, emotional, you just knew how much it meant, and he showed how much it meant in the way that he played.
Our guest is Matt Verderame of Fansided, covers the National Football League. You can find his work at fansided.com, including the Stacking the Box column and Stacking the Box podcast. And Matt joins us every Monday here at this time on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, let's talk about the man of the hour, Patrick Mahomes. Everything that could have been stacked against a quarterback, I think, was stacked against Mahomes in that game. He's got a bum wheel. He can't move around like normal. He was down by the second half to wide receiver 2, wide receiver 6, and a practice squad special teams elevation running routes for him. And still in all, he goes over 300 yards. He throws for the 2 touchdowns, including one of the best of his career, the touchdown to Marquez Valdez in the third quarter that put the Chiefs ahead. And he's going back to a 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. What is there new to say about this guy other than if you don't think he's the best thing going, you must be huffing paint or something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there really is anything to say about him. Look, he's the only player in the NFL that you can pay $450 million to and feel like the team got the market. I mean, honestly, think about how every market, every year in free agency, right, or even with extensions of the quarterback, it always changes. It's always this guy gets more, this guy gets more. Now, we've seen guys eclipse Mahomes' average annual value. Nobody's even touched or come close to touching his total value in his contract. Nobody. Because he's that much better. He's about everybody else. No, so Burrow and Herbert get their extensions. They'll get closer because the cap's going up to 225. And it'll keep rising with the new TV deals and everything else. Eventually, it will get eclipsed, but it might not get eclipsed for another 5 years. You could argue, was that his best game ever? Not statistically, not by a long shot. You could argue that was the gutsiest game he's ever played. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, the play that decided the game was him deciding to take off and run and doing whatever it took. And it ended up drawing a penalty that ultimately put them in position to kick the field goal. But, I mean, how many guys in that spot would have just thrown the ball away, right? Or would have said, all right, you know what, there's 10 seconds left, I'll force it, and if I get picked, so what? He ran. He took off. It had to hurt like hell. He picks up the first down. Osai hits him out of bounds, and they go to the Super Bowl because of it.
Is this the most satisfying of the 3 AFC championship wins for the Chiefs to this point?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer because the first one's got to be right there, right? I mean, you haven't gone to the Super Bowl in 50 years and you finally win. Like, there's got to be something to it. But I think if you ask the team, if you ask Brett Veach, Andy Reid, it's probably the most satisfying because there is an element of this team was not supposed to be here. I mean, like, and every team plays the disrespect card, right? And sometimes it's hilariously so. I mean, Georgia beat TCU by 800 points. And after the game, somehow nobody believed in Georgia, which everybody believed in Georgia. And I think, there were the handful of people who thought the Chiefs would make the playoffs, stuff like that, the Bart Scotts of the world. But I think most people thought they'd be good. They'd be a divisional round team at least. I don't think people thought, with all that they did this offseason, with an eye toward the future, that they'd be back in the Super Bowl. And when everything happened that's happened the last couple of weeks, with all the injuries, get banged up, and all the talk coming out of Cincinnati, I think they're, for the players, for the coaches, I think this one probably is a little bit sweeter than all the rest.
Regarding the opponent last night for the Chiefs, the Bengals have now been to back-to-back AFC championship games, and they've been playing the game on easy mode because they haven't had to pay their quarterback yet. That bill is about to come due on Joe Burrow. They've got some big names about to hit free agency, Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Jermaine Pratt, to name some others. Where do the Bengals go from here, and what are the chances that we get a third round of the Chiefs and the Bengals at some point in the AFC playoffs next season?
Well, I mean, the odds are that you won't get it, just based on, some other team will crop up. That's the way these things go. But, I think realistically speaking, I don't think the Bengals are going anywhere. I mean, the Bengals are a very, very good football team. They came up a little bit shy last night, but far be it to say, I think their window's closed. I think what's going to be interesting with the Bengals now is, are they going to pay these players the way we've seen Buffalo pay? The way we've seen Kansas City pay. Mike Brown, he doesn't have billions of dollars. Like, by NFL owner standpoint, he's cash poor. I remember asking people in the league, agents especially, before the season, and even at the beginning of the season, if Burrow and Herbert play well, what do you think their contracts will be? What would you ask for? And the thought was, I'd ask for $55 million a year because with the cap going up, that's what these guys are going to be worth. Well, Burrows has had a great year. So is Mike Brown, is he going to be willing to spend that kind of money? Is he going to be willing to then also spend $30 million on Jamar Chase and $25 to $30 million on T. Higgins? Is he going to spend $60 million over 4 years on Jermaine Pratt? Is he going to do that? Because any dime you put in guaranteed money in a contract has to be put in escrow. You got to have that money on hand. Look, there's a reason the Bengals this offseason, this past offseason, renamed their stadium and got rights to it. There's a reason. I talked to one person in the league who felt genuinely that the Bengals are going to have to take out a loan when it came time to pay Joe Burrow. So it's going to be challenging, but I do think that if you're the Bengals, you have to think they're motivated to keep as much of this team together as possible, because without that, what are you? You're a franchise adrift, and they did enough of that over the last 30 years. I think they'll do their best to keep it together, but they'll lose guys. That's the nature of the NFL.
We're talking to Matt Verderame, national NFL reporter for Fansided.com. Go check out the Stacking the Box column, Stacking the Box podcast, and Arrowhead Addict podcast, all starring or written by Matt over at Fansided.com. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame. All right, Matt, we've got 2 weeks to prepare for it, but right now, what is your favorite storyline narrative going into Super Bowl 57? Is it first time ever we've had two starting black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl? Is it Andy Reid versus his old team? Is it just that it's one seed versus one seed? Mahomes trying to break the no MVP has won the Super Bowl since 99 stretch. What is narrative number one for you for this Super Bowl matchup?
You know, I might be in the minority with this. I think it's going to annoy a lot of people. I'm all in on the Kelsey versus Kelsey thing. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I think they're two really likable guys. Like Jason Kelsey's the everyman in Philly, right? I mean, everybody in Philly loves him. Everybody loves Travis Kelsey in Kansas City. I don't know too many people in the league that can't stand the Kelseys. Like, how many people are there to loathe Travis or Jason Kelsey? And, you know, they have the podcast going together, New Height. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a fun storyline. I also say this. I don't know how much of a storyline it's going to be, although it should be one. You have maybe the two best offensive lines and the two best defensive fronts in the NFL. Like, the Eagles led the league in sacks. The Chiefs are second. The Eagles have 3 offensive line Pro Bowlers. So do the Chiefs. They both have 2 All-Pros on their offensive line. Like, everybody's going to talk about Mahomes and Hurts and the coaches, and rightfully so. But what's not going to get talked about, and what should be, because it's going to decide this game, is the lines are awesome on both sides. It's going to be fascinating to watch Chris Jones at times going against Jason Kelsey. It's going to be crazy to watch Frank Clark, who in the playoffs turns into Lawrence Taylor, going against Lane Johnson. It's going to be fun to watch Dominican Sue and Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave going against the interior of the Chiefs' offensive line. That's going to be what determines the Super Bowl, and I can't wait to watch it.
As for the NFC Championship game, the Eagles take down the 49ers. Is there a whole lot about the Eagles we learned or we can glean from that game? I mean, Jalen Hurts was clearly not 100% and wasn't great, but they still dominated. Not having a quarterback on the other team pretty much decided that game as soon as Brock Purdy got hurt, then came back in and couldn't throw anything beyond middle screens 3 yards down the field. I mean, is there really anything new you can take about the Philadelphia Eagles after that beatdown?
No, there's not. I mean, the Niners would have lost to Houston on Sunday. I don't know what to do with that. Like, I mean, go to Philadelphia, fair enough, to play the game, you win it. I'm not taking away from Philly, but I don't know. I mean, how could you break down that game and say, yeah, I feel really confident about Philly after that? Like, I don't know. I mean, I got to tell you, in some ways, watching the game in the first half, it's like, my God, the Eagles can't put them away right now. Missing half the team. But, yeah, listen, ultimately, I think it's going to be a really good game in 2 weeks. I think the Eagles have shown all year long what they can do. They're a dominant team up front on both sides of the ball. The only team with more 20-yard-plus plays, explosive plays this season is Kansas City, 83-80. Both teams are excellent offensively in the red zone. The Chiefs have been awful defensively in the red zone. The playoffs have actually been really good. The Eagles are middle of the pack. You know, I think it's one of those things. No, I don't take anything from what happened on Sunday. I just look at the body of work, and I think it's going to really be a great game. I think either team can win it. I can't wait to cover it and be down in Arizona for the game. It should be a lot of fun.
It should be an absolute blast. So many storylines, so many narratives, the two best teams in the NFL in Super Bowl 57. And to break it all down, we are joined by NFL insider extraordinaire Matt Verderame from Fansided.com. Go check out all of his great work at Fansided, including the Stacking the Box column and podcast. And for Chiefs things especially, go to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. Find Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame. Matt, we appreciate you taking some time out of your busy week. I know Senior Bowl is coming up. Obviously, the championship games this weekend, so we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week as we gear up for Super Bowl 57.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
Absolutely fantastic stuff, as always, from Matt Verderame of Fansided.com as we recap AFC Championship game number 5 and win number 3 for the Kansas City Chiefs and get ready for Super Bowl 57 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, my God, I cannot wait. With that, though, we have to take a break for the national and local news here at the top of the hour. We'll come back in the 4 o'clock hour. We've got plenty more from the AFC Championship game to talk about. We'll get to our What Is Wrong With You semifinals, and we'll get to some college hoops as well. It's all coming up next hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dorzinski and Dan Lucero with you on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW for 580 Sports Talk today. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you spending some of your afternoon hours with us here on the program. If you missed the first hour of the show, go check out our website, 580WIBW.com. Go to the podcast tab, and when you hover over that, click on 580 Sports Talk, and that's where you'll find the hour-by-hour podcast version of the show. And, of course, you are welcome to chime in during the show at any point on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And the comment section is open on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW. Is our YouTube channel. Casey on YouTube says we've already got a What Is Wrong With You nominee for the month of February. We'll probably be getting to that coming up a little bit later on in the week. Sounds like a great story. I'm very intrigued by this. I did not see this. It's a local story. I did not see this when it happened the other day. So I'm very excited for that coming up in a couple weeks, or a couple days, I should say. Today, we've got our What Is Wrong With You semifinals for the month of January. Our 4 weekly winners for the month will go head-to-head against each other. The 2 finalists will then meet tomorrow for our January championship in What Is Wrong With You. Also this hour, we obviously have plenty of Chiefs news to get to. Chiefs beat the Bengals yesterday. They finally slayed that boogeyman, and they are now going back to the Super Bowl for the 3rd time in 4 years. That is preposterous. And also, we will get to a little college basketball later on in the hour because KU and K-State both won this weekend and helped the Big 12 yet again hold serve in the Big 12 SEC Challenge that is mercifully over. It is gone. It is done with. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Finally. Get that crap out of my face.
You know who else isn't sad to see it go? Anybody involved.
No one.
Both coaches. I was at Kansas State, Florida on Saturday night at Bramlage Coliseum. And both coaches, like Todd Golden kind of talked around it because it's his first year in the SEC. He's the first-year head coach at Florida. He did say, yeah, it would have been nice to get a home game. Like, yeah, in the middle of their schedule, got to fly from Gainesville to Manhattan to play a game after you're catching fire in the SEC. That was a tough spot for them. And then Jerome Tang just flat out said it like, yeah, I'm not sad this is going away. Like, if they want to give us a break in league play, just give us a break.
Yeah, I did not listen back to Bill Self's midweek press conference last week. I think he held it on Thursday or Friday ahead of the game. Must have been Thursday since they traveled. But God help whichever beat reporter on the KU beat said, Bill, what do you think about playing an SEC team middle of the Big 12 season? Because I guarantee you he gave the same answer he has given for the last decade, in that we're going to try really hard and you got to play these on your schedule, but really kind of screws everything up, breaking up conference play like that.
It does.
It's stupid and it sucks, and I'm glad it's gone. I would much rather have a road game against conference foe Houston, Houston's real good, or conference foe Cincinnati or something, then, here is a game that in the long run probably isn't going to mean anything. Because it's not like these teams need more quad 1 wins at this point. The only teams that really, truly benefited from this are Oklahoma and West Virginia this year. It didn't benefit anyone else.
Oklahoma doing what they did to Alabama is the most confounding result of the college basketball season to me. Nothing about that makes sense.
Last year I remember, because Alabama had a lot of hype, because 2 years ago it was, Alabama, maybe this Nate Oates guy really can coach. Okay. Last year they had a ton of hype, and then they had a couple of games where, it's still Alabama basketball. Like, they're better, but let's pump the brakes. This isn't exactly, Nick Saban's football team here. This year, they've really avoided that. They've been, I told you, I think it was, I don't know what day it was last week, but I told you I thought Alabama deserved to be the number 1 team in the country. It must have been Monday when the poll came out. Yeah. I said Alabama should be the number 1 team in the country over Purdue. Then this weekend, Purdue went and beat Michigan State handily, and Zach Edey looked incredible. And Alabama got smoked by a mediocre Oklahoma team.
Mediocre might be charitable. describe Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They dropped a 90-point nuke on them. I mean, that just
might have saved their season.
Yes. Confounding is the only word I have for it. And nothing about that made sense. It looked like it was going to be a wild day, right? Because that was an early game in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. And then you had Iowa State get run off the floor in Columbia.
Yep.
Missouri's beat the brakes off of Iowa State. And then the rest of it was just kind of normal, which was the Big 12 winning all the games except for the one where TCU's best player got hurt a handful of minutes in and they lost in overtime. Other than that, it was all Big 12.
Incredible. Best conference. There's no Big 12 chant. You can't really do, like, SEC is easy. It's 3 syllables, one after the other. You can pace it out. Big 12. You can't.
Big 12. Yeah, it doesn't work.
I guess
doesn't work.
Yeah,
doesn't work.
Not so great. So we'll get to college basketball a little bit later on. KU and K-State both with wins this weekend. But let's get back to the NFL. Let's get back to the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. But this is unimportant, but I want to get to it real quick. The Chiefs had the gall, the nerve to post a graphic on Twitter today of Chris Jones's quote about, I'm going to look in the camera and tell you, do not ever disrespect Arrowhead Stadium. And they put in quotation marks
like
in the text
brackets
on the graphic, GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Come on, man.
Hey, man, GEHA is paying a lot of money for that.
They really are.
They're paying the Chiefs a lot of money to do that. They're not paying me. They're not paying you. They're not paying Chiefs fans, but they are paying the Chiefs. So best believe they're going to get their money's worth on that sponsorship.
I got to put this graphic up on the YouTube because it is so freaking funny.
It was really funny.
You got Chris Jones freaking out over here. GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. We're going to put this up on the YouTube stream so everyone can get a good, sensible chuckle out of this because I know I will be for quite a while. The thing about this game that I think is, I don't know about more encouraging, but makes it feel so much more satisfying, I think, if you're the Chiefs. And by the way, as of right now, if you're watching on the YouTube stream, we have this graphic posted. Don't ever disrespect GEHA Field in parentheses at Arrowhead. Come on, man. That's so bad. But the thing is that you had so many different guys step up. And we talked about that in the opening segment, the A block of the show. Matt Verderame talked about that specifically when it comes to Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, and the rookies who were awesome. Aside from that one play, the rookies were incredible the entire game for the Chiefs. Offense and defense. We didn't even mention Sky Moore earlier, other than the fact that he doesn't play a whole lot and had to play a bunch in this game because everybody got hurt.
Also had to return punts. I said this on the live stream that we recorded last night, that when they sent Sky Moore back to return that punt with 30 seconds left or however much time was there, the final minute of the game, and Jim Nantz is mentioning how he lost the job after he fumbled 3 punts earlier in the season.
Yep.
All-time bad vibe moments. Felt like it might have been incoming.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, Sky, whatever you do, brother, don't drop this punt. Like, don't even catch it. Like, if you're not comfortable under it, don't even bother catching it. Let it hit, let it roll, do what it does. But just don't be a hero. And then he went out and he kind of was a hero with an excellent punt return. We saw what Dave Tobe, I guess, was the only one that thought we could see all along with Sky Moore as a punt returner. And it was a very, very cool moment for Sky, very vindicating moment, well, for Dave Tobe, but I think also for Sky Moore to be able to make that play. That was really, really cool. And yeah, like you mentioned, not the only rookie to come up big. Joshua Williams forced into action. That was one guy we talked about in the lead up is, well, he kind of had a tough game against Cincinnati first time around, but he's not going to be a factor in this game because Jalen Wilson's taking his snaps now. And then L'Jarius Sneed tries to tackle Quadzilla Samaje Perine and pays the price, ends up with a concussion. Yeah. Hopefully he's all right for 2 weeks. You'd like to believe that he could be, but concussions are weird animals. He might feel fine today. He might not feel fine for a while. So you just don't know with Sneed. But all of a sudden, it's Joshua Williams pressed into a big role, and he was responsible for the blown coverage on the 3rd and 16 that the Bengals converted on their last offensive drive. But he also had an interception, and he held his own. Like, yeah, this was not a game where the Bengals were able to dominate over the top, and the front line for the Chiefs deserves a ton of credit for that. But the rookie corners all held their own. And Brian Cook was a roller coaster of a game for him, but he was the one in coverage on the throw that Hayden Hurst couldn't get a hand on in the back corner of the end zone on Cincinnati's first drive. That was good coverage by Brian Cook on that play. Perfectly thrown ball. I mean, you can't throw a better ball, but the coverage was just good enough to make it a tough catch for Hurst, and he couldn't bring it in. Cook was there on that, and Cook was there to bat away the pass to T. Higgins that ended up being the Williams interception. Trent McDuffie dropped a pick early, and I thought played just a all-around really solid game.
Yeah.
Needs longer cleats?
Yeah,
venture to say.
Come on. At home, you can't be slipping like that at home.
Yeah, he was slipping all over the place. But
by the way, I'm sorry to cut you off, but there's another play from early in the game that has not been talked about because so much happened after that point. It was nearly disaster early in the first quarter for the Bengals. Joe Burrow never saw Trent McDuffie. Never saw him. And Romo was breaking down why he was throwing to the receiver he was targeting. I can't remember who the intended target was in that play. He just never saw Trent McDuffie just waiting there, reacting to the play. It nearly got late early for the Bengals in the very first quarter.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
could have been a total disaster. So, yeah, all those young guys, they hold their own. George Karlaftis gets a sack in this game as well. Much was made going into this season that it's not, to call it a rebuild would have been wrong because you're not rebuilding if Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback. But there was definitely a retooling happening. The defense had to get younger.
Yep.
They had to get younger in spots. They had to trust some young guys. And then all Brett Veach does is hit a grand slam with the draft class. And in free agency, I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, let's give that man his flowers.
Yeah.
This is a guy who essentially was wide receiver 1 in the second half last night, and he played like it. That catch he made, I feel like we're not freaking out enough. I could do 3 hours just yelling about Mahomes' touchdown pass to MVS in the third quarter that put the Chiefs on top 20-13. To do that on one leg and to fit that ball into a thimble, which is essentially what he did. I mean, if he waits a millisecond longer, it's a deflection, maybe even a pick. If that throw is off even a little bit, Mike Hilton gets a hand to it. If he waits a beat longer, maybe he gets sacked, and maybe that's the end of that drive. 3rd and 10 to throw that, and MVS making the sliding catch, hands catch in the middle of the end zone. Huge game for MVS. Again, an off-season acquisition. The Chiefs had one of the great off seasons in franchise history this year. I think it can be told now.
Oh, for sure.
And
for sure,
the conversation about great GMs in the NFL, I don't think it includes Brett Veach all that much when it's had on a national scale. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I get the feeling, and this is a wrong feeling, that people, when they talk about great personnel guys or great GMs, Brett Veach isn't one of the first names that's on that list. Why the hell not?
Because there's too much goodness happening in Kansas City at the same time. That's a serious answer. Like for Mahomes, it's always, yeah, but is he really that great, or is he just the best one that Andy Reid has ever had? Is Andy Reid all that great at what he's doing now? No, same old Andy Reid that he was in Philly, but now he's got Mahomes. Brett Veach, yeah, well, I mean, you got the quarterback and the coach, right? That's a genuine answer, I think, is that no one ever gets enough credit when you've got that much greatness. Hell, the Patriots won 400 Super Bowls, and we still, to this day, we being football consumers, although this is the BS I was talking about earlier that I'm very over at this point in my life, like there's still, well, was it more Belichick or was it more Brady? Like, they were just both great.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the Chiefs. Brett Veach built a great team. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. Andy Reid is a great coach for that great quarterback and that great team that was built by the great GM.
Yeah. And when it's all great, this is what it looks like. 3 Super Bowl appearances in 4 years, and 5 AFC Championship game appearances in 5 years. And by the way, the other 2 teams that went to 5 straight conference championship games in NFL history, they did not have as much success as the Chiefs have had in these 5 straight.
Nope.
Raiders went 1-4 in their run of 5 straight AFC title games in the 70s. When the Patriots went to what ended up being 8 straight, they lost 3 of the first 5. One of them to Joe Flacco and 2 of them to Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. So to win 3 out of 5 in a stretch like that, and yeah, like there's a ways to go on this, and the Patriots did win the next 3 in that stretch, so they end up going 5-3 over an 8 championship game stretch, and they deserve credit for that. But still, like there's no guarantees that you've done it once and you're going to get to do it again, or you're going to go further than you did the year before. It's hard to do. And the Chiefs just keep climbing the mountain, and they keep doing it because, as you said, they're great at every level. They're great in the front office. They're great on the sideline. They're great on the field. They got 3 Hall of Famers on this team. I am pivoting now to referring to Chris Jones as the future Hall of Famer.
He's got, I had the number in front of me. Is it 4 total All-Pros or 4 second-team All-Pros? He's got, I think, 3 second teams, a first-team All-Pro, 4 Pro Bowls, all in the last 5 years.
And as an interior pass rusher, what are we looking at now? 65 career
65
sacks?
career sacks. And now 2 in the postseason as well.
Yeah. That's all correct. All those facts are correct.
I mean, he did have a career year this year with 15.5 sacks and, first team All-Pro and all that, but I'm not going to predict he gets to 100. That is an absurd number for a interior lineman, but he's not old. I mean, he's got plenty of time left. That's barely, 50% more than he's got right now.
If he puts another ring on his finger and sticks around, has a nice sort of a gentle decline rather than an injury related decline, then he'll be a no doubter. And to me, I mean, he's on his way. Like, this team has now, again, won 3 AFC titles in 4 years. You're telling me there's only 2 future Hall of Famers part of this core group? Generally speaking, you win like this, it's more than just 2 guys go to Canton. Like, Mahomes could decide he doesn't want to play football anymore tomorrow, and he would breeze into Canton.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Kelce's heading to Canton. Tyreek Hill's probably going to get there, so I guess that would be a third.
On this pace, yeah, he'll get there.
Yeah, he's probably heading in that direction. But man,
how much of the core does he count for, though? And I don't mean that as a slight to him because he's obviously a great player. But let's say this team wins 2 more, so this year and then 1 in the next 2 or 3 years. How much of the core is Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, he's
like the
part of the
foundation.
Part of it. Yeah, part of the foundation. He gets certainly some credit for that. But yeah, I just think that witnessing greatness like Chris Jones that's Hall of Fame greatness to me. That's a guy who completely wrecked a championship game, who took what the Bengals wanted to do and said, "You're not doing this today. You're going to single block me with Akeem Adeniji. You're going to pay the price on this third down."
Yeah, that was tough.
I know that's your boy.
He actually, I thought, played pretty well for most of the game, but that was probably because the Chiefs waited until the 4th quarter to put Chris Jones on the edge. And then they did on a 3rd down, and it did not go well for the former Kansas Jayhawk.
Just a remarkable performance. Texter from the 785 and the Big O Tires text line makes the same point that Matt Verderame did when we talked to him at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour here on 580 Sports Talk, that when Chris Jones was crying during the anthem, that was a sign. Everybody knew it was over.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, you talk about a dude that was so keyed up to play, and it meant so much to this team. And it goes back to having to sit on that loss for 364 days, because today, it was 1 year from today that the Chiefs lost the AFC Championship game to that team last year. And they had to sit on that, and they had to sit on a regular season loss, and they had to sit on the Burrowhead stuff, and they had to sit on the Cincinnati mayor talking some of the worst smack in the recorded history of smack. They had to eat it, because that's what you do when you've lost 3 straight to the same team, when you've lost the big game. When you're not winning, you have to eat it. You have to sit there and you have to take it. And the Chiefs took it, and then they went and won a football game for 60 minutes, and they let it all out in the postgame. That was something special. Travis Kelce not even on 10, on 11 in the post game, hijacking Patrick Mahomes' interview live on CBS, getting some words in the podium. Chris Jones is on one. There's video of the players on IG Live smoking cigars, and Patrick Mahomes, the first, getting in on some of the trash talk. Like,
Pat was feeling himself last night.
Yes, he was. He should be feeling himself. So I asked Matt Verderame this, and I firmly believe that I agree with him that the answer is yes, that this is the most satisfying of the 3 AFC Championship games for the Chiefs, because they had to be a great team to get there. They had to be a team that had their number to get there, and they had to listen to all the noise, shut it out, beat the team, and now they get to talk their talk.
I can't remember a game that was this personal. Like, your Seahawks and the 49ers for a few years there had some really intense games. And, like Richard Sherman took things personally.
Yeah.
And, great ones normally do. Like quarterbacks take things personally because they're insane.
Great players find ways to invent the chip on their shoulder that is
the
not
Jordan
there.
thing.
Yeah, we just saw the Georgia Bulldogs win a national championship game 65-7, and then talk with straight faces in the postgame about how nobody believed in us. Everybody thought we were going to go 7-5. Like, yo, you were number 3 in the country in the preseason polls. This is not serious. But the great ones always are able to create that chip on their shoulder. And so the Chiefs, they're self-evidently great. What they had done going into last night made them a great team, a team for the memory bank, a team of the decade sort of team. That chip was already there, and the Bengals just layered it on. It gave them more and more fuel, kept fueling that fire, and now they got to listen to the Chiefs. That's what the Bengals have to do now. And that's not a situation they've been in. They've never been the team that's been knocked off the throne.
No, they haven't been. But the other thing is, too, they didn't even need to invent a chip this time. The Bengals did plenty of that. And the funny thing is, I was talking to Jake about this this morning when I first got in the office. I think, all the stuff about Burrowhead and all this. Like, I get Joe Burrow's cocky, and I'm a big fan. I've made that pretty clear. But if anyone, he didn't say anything.
No.
Like, all week, he was the one who got caught. Yo, dude, stop. Mike Hilton, stop printing my name on this stuff.
I'm not sure Joe Burrow experiences human emotion. Like,
he might not.
He's kind of robotic in his way. He's not a guy that gets too high or too low. That's one of the reasons he's such an outstanding quarterback. I think he does have a confidence that can feel like cockiness because it's that aloof confidence, and I can rub people the wrong way. But yeah, like, he was kind of getting caught in the crossfire a little bit. And now his name's in everybody's mouth for some bad reasons. And it's not like he played a bad game. I mean, he did throw the 2 picks. One of them was bad. One of them not his fault. One of them was a great play by the defensive player. Made some other big time throws in the game. Like, Joe Burrow played well enough to win. But look, man, that's how this goes.
That's being a quarterback, right?
Yes.
That's being an NFL superstar quarterback. And I think it is fair to say, if he was not already, Joe Burrow is in that echelon now of superstar quarterback. Right? The ones who are true, like, star is glowing bright or is getting brighter, it's Mahomes, it's Burrow, it's probably Josh Allen, and, like, Rodgers isn't in that tier anymore. Brady's not in that tier anymore. I don't think Herbert's in that tier because he hasn't won jack.
No.
So
at least win a playoff game,
right?
Before we can talk about you in that department.
So, like, he's in that tier, and fair or not, that's how we treat quarterbacks. Is you get all the credit when you win, and we do the Mahomes versus Burrow thing, even though the two of them will never be on this field at the same time except during handshakes. And then you get all the blame when you lose. And you get people talking smack about you, even if you're the only one who kept your mouth shut all week.
And sometimes it does. Sometimes it creates great rivalry. Sometimes it's Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson.
Yeah.
And we'll see which direction this goes, right?
This is officially rivalry now, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because we talked about that after the first time when we said Chiefs Bengals is what everyone wants Chiefs Bills to be. But the Bills haven't won the big one over the Chiefs. Okay, a couple regular season games. Great. The big ones, when they counted, didn't have that. The Bengals won the initial matchup. They won the playoff game to get to the Super Bowl. They won the follow-up regular season revenge game. Now it's a rivalry because now the Chiefs got one back, and they got the big one back.
And it's the best rivalry going in football right now because,
for sure.
The divisions are smaller than they used to be. And I know you still play teams twice a year, but with the divisions smaller than they used to be and some of them not looking the same as they did for years of NFL history, you don't get the great divisional rivalries anymore. And part of that is there used to be a lot of really great ones in the AFC West, but none of them have been important in the last decade.
No,
because the Chiefs beat everybody and the Broncos and the Raiders are irrelevant.
Yeah. And hell, the Chargers are pretty much irrelevant.
Yeah, the Chargers, they don't have, nobody cares about the Chargers. They're not part of that for whatever reason. So, yeah, you'll always have Steelers, Ravens, and like Seahawks, 49ers was really good at its peak and can be really good. maybe Rams, 49ers. I don't know. The NFC East rivalries are, they've got the most history to them probably over the course of the NFL. But right now, for my money, if there's one NFL game you want to watch, there's one that's going to be circled on the calendar for next year in the NFL, game of the year in the regular season, Bengals Chiefs.
We do have to get a break here because we've gone a little long. So we do have to get to a commercial break. But I do want to ask one thing real quick. Has your opinion on Zach Taylor changed at all?
Yeah, in the sense that I thought he was not actually a real good coach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not sure he's the level of coach that like Sean McVay is or that Andy Reid is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about Andy Reid, maybe mishandling the decision to punt or getting criticized for the decision to punt there with just over 2 minutes left in the game,
mm-hmm.
Or mishandling the end game in the first half.
Yeah.
They got the ball after the interception with 2.5 minutes to go before halftime,
mm-hmm.
and they go 3 and out with 3 incompletes. They don't even make the Bengals use a timeout. It cost them 3 points, but the Bengals mishandled that as well.
Yeah.
And they mishandled their timeout situation in a way that cost them a chance to go get 7 and make it 13-10 at halftime instead of 13-6. That would have mattered quite a bit. So, no, do I think that Zach Taylor is now all of a sudden an elite coach? No, but I think he showed this year the ability to adapt, the ability to be more than just a deep ball merchant.
I think I clowned him a little too much earlier in the year for, he stopped calling his nonsense plays, just let Burrow do his thing, and now they're good. I thought, well, maybe that was actually good coaching. Like
Yeah.
maybe that was actually a tactical advantage.
No, they've got a good setup. They've got a good head coach. They've got a good offensive coordinator, and a great defensive coordinator. We'll see how long either of those guys hang around.
And we will get to that coming up in headlines. Some major NFL news, coaching-wise and personnel-wise, coming up later on. Right now, though, we do have to get to a break. The What Is Wrong With You semifinals are up next on 580 Sports Talk. Time for the January semifinals in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. 4 weekly winners and a perfect even 4 weeks. So we've got 1 versus 1 2 times in our semifinals. No play-in game. Our first semifinal of the month, Dan, we've got the 911 Burglars versus the B-Dubs Dine and Dash. The 911 burglars, in layman's terms, they just, they wanted some help stealing some furniture. And they needed a ride to the airport, too. And I thought, you know what? You know who could help us with both of these things? The cops. 911. I'm sure they'd be willing to lend a hand.
Our friendly neighborhood policeman.
The police were not interested in aiding and abetting the process of a robbery.
They did give him a ride, though.
They did. They did eventually get that ride, just not to the airport, to the Clink instead. That is up against the B-Dubs Dine and Dash, which was our final weekly winner of the month, the second to last winner of the month. A woman decided to dip out on her bill at the airport Buffalo Wild Wings at Hartsfield, Atlanta. And, when they said, hey, you want to come back? You want to pay for that? You owe us, $24 or whatever. You got the large and 17 Diet Cokes. You going to pay for that? She picked up a fire extinguisher and started just blowing it all over the place, discharging the foam, the fire retardant foam all over the concourse. What was it? Concourse D at in the Delta terminal at Atlanta.
So we finally did get a police report
on
what happened. There was a suspicious female attempting to open secured doors inside the concourse. The woman, identified as Jennifer Holder, was in gate D9 discharging a fire extinguisher inside the concourse. Officers attempted to make contact with the female, but she was non-compliant and sprayed officers with the fire extinguisher. Despite being assaulted, officers were able to detain the combative female, and they took her to the precinct, where she continued to behave erratically and combatively by spitting and kicking at officers. And she had several charges pending, including assault. The investigation is ongoing. But yeah, she tried to get through some doors. Like she was trying to get away, maybe, and spraying the fire extinguisher to keep the cops at bay. I'm not exactly sure what went through that woman's fool mind when she decided to empty out a fire extinguisher in an airport terminal. But I don't think, as batty as she is, she beats the people who decided to call 911 with help with moving stolen property. That is bonkers to me.
Why would they help? Do you think they ever asked that question themselves? Why would the police help you commit a crime? Now just take a step back. I know it's the heat of the moment. It's tough, but why would they do that?
Like,
if you can't come up with an answer to that question, you should not be calling them.
Don't have Uber or like
a friend with a truck.
No friends. I know nobody likes to help people move. Trust me, I've moved plenty. But yeah, it can't be the police, man.
That's brutal. All right, I'm with you on that one. That is our winner in semifinal number 1. Our second semifinal, we've got my favorite story of the month, the Ribeye Robin Hood. The man in his mid-60s. I gotta get the picture up on the stream. I gotta get the picture up.
While you get it up, we'll go ahead and note the opponent. We called it Speedway Stupidity, a gentleman working at a Speedway convenience store who took a phone call from a person claiming to be his boss's boss and who convinced him at 3:00 in the morning to withdraw all the money from the Speedway safe and take it to a Bitcoin ATM and deposit it into an account there. Unsurprisingly, our guy, Eric, he doesn't work for the Speedway anymore.
Let's also not forget, before he was told to go to the Bitcoin ATM, they had him try to wire money into a Mexican bank account.
Yeah, and from his own credit card.
Yeah, they weren't even trying to rob the store at first. They were just, sure, yeah, we'll take your money.
They just decided they were going to scam Eric. And boy, did they find the right target.
I wouldn't trust Eric to do anything.
No.
Nothing. I wouldn't trust Eric to tell me which way is up. Unbelievably stupid. That is going up against the Ribeye Robin Hood. If you're watching on YouTube, the picture is now on the screen. The suitcase full of meat in South Euclid, Ohio, where a man from Garfield Heights was arrested after investigators say he stole a shopping cart full of packaged meat and then planned to resell it to local restaurants at half price.
That's so much meat.
He filled his shopping cart with the meat. Full cart.
Yeah.
Tried to leave the store. Then filled the suitcase with as much meat as he could. threw the rest of it in a dumpster. He said, screw it. I don't need this extra rack of ribs. I don't need these extra cold cuts. Put them in the trash. Then was going to hop on a bus and go stop by Tony's Diner to go sell them steak for steak and eggs or whatever.
I'm going to the Shoney's. I'm going to unload this log of beef that I stole.
I'm the Cracker Barrel plug.
I'm going to fence this stolen meat to area restaurants. Brilliant plan. How many times have you been arrested?
Yeah, by the way, there's the other detail in this. The 62-year-old man has been arrested 70 times.
We don't know if it's all for the meat crime.
This is why I tell you every day, multiple times a day, you need to subscribe to the YouTube, because we can tell you on the radio how great this is, but if you want the visual of the suitcase filled with meat, you got to find the web stream. This is one of my all-time favorite stories. This is on there on my personal What Is Wrong with the Mount Rushmore with the guy who tried to steal a plane to go to a concert. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
In Texarkana? And then he got in and was like, how do I fly this? Cop showed up.
Yeah.
This is up there with that one for me.
Oh, my God.
This one wins this semifinal.
He's going to roll the Samsonite full of meat into the Perkins and be like, hey, you guys low on beef liver? I got you.
Got beef liver. Got the big tube of meat, of ground beef. Got ribs.
Wonder how big those chubs were. Like, could he have gotten, is there enough meat on there that he would have had to pay extra to get that suitcase on an airplane?
Oh,
over the 50-pound limit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those big tubes of ground beef are 10 pounds each.
Yeah, he got two of the chubs, the 10-pound chubs.
So, yeah, I mean, there's 20 pounds right there. Oh, yeah. That is my winner for this one.
Yeah, this one. Yeah.
This man filled a suitcase with stolen meat.
It's a heavy favorite. I mean, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but Meat Guy is I'm probably minus 5,000 on the boards for tomorrow's What Is Wrong with You January championship.
What is Patrick Mahomes' current MVP odds? Like, that's what we're looking at for Ribeye Robin Hood coming up tomorrow. That is our semifinals for the month of January here in What Is Wrong with You. We'll find our champion tomorrow. Right now, we've got to take a quick break. We'll get some college hoops action. KU and K-State both with wins over SEC teams this weekend. We'll break it down next on 580 Sports Talk. This man shoved a bunch of meat in a suitcase. Can't get over it. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Victory Monday afternoon. Chiefs are headed back to the Super Bowl in case you had not heard. We'll look ahead next hour to who they're playing in the Super Bowl, by the way. The Philadelphia Eagles, who are really freaking good. This is the best two teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. That is so cool.
But
we haven't had that in a long time.
No, I think it's the first time it's the 2 1 seeds since 2017, I think was the last time.
Been a minute.
I saw the last time it was in the 2 number 1 seeds met in the Super Bowl. Yeah, we don't always get this. So don't take it for granted. It's pretty awesome to see the two very best standing at the end. The Chiefs had to grind their way through 2 tough games against Trevor Lawrence and the young, feisty Jaguars and the outstanding Bengals and their star quarterback, Joe Burrow. And the Eagles got to play on easy mode. They got to beat Daniel Jones and the Giants, who were out of their depth in the divisional round. And then they got to play against a team who didn't have a quarterback for 3/4 of the game. Like, I don't know to what extent that matters, but if that kind of thing matters, that's an edge to the Chiefs.
Absolutely. We'll get to more on that NFC Championship game and the team without a quarterback coming up in our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Broke within the last hour what the situation is for Brock Purdy. Sucks. It really, really sucks for Brock Purdy. So we'll get to that coming up at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. Did want to get to a little college hoops from this weekend. KU and K-State both won their games in the final, thank God, Big 12 SEC Challenge. Look, let's just get K-State out of the way. That there's nothing to take from that game. Florida is garbage. That team sucks. I don't want to, like I said it earlier, this is a point against analytics. That team sucked. I don't care that they were top 50 in Ken Palm or whatever. Get them out. That team is trash. Colin Castleton is 94 years old. Go play at the Y already.
He's a stiff, man. He's a decent shot blocker, but I'm
done with them.
They forced the ball. K-State forced the ball out of his hands and into the hands of a bunch of guards who could not shoot. And that's a young team. You know, it's the contrast was pointed out after the game. You got 2 first-year head coaches in that matchup, and Jerome Tang went and got veterans. He went and got some transfers, and Todd Golden got some transfers, but they were younger guys. Like, a lot of sophomores and juniors getting playing time for that Florida team. And K-State was just better. But I do think there was one thing to take away from that game. One very big development, I think, for Kansas State. And I don't choose that word accidentally. David Gasson is a factor.
That's important. That's good.
So K-State was plus 13 on the glass. And Jerome Tang after the game said, you know, we really focused on rebounding. We wanted to be a better rebounding. We want to be a better rebounding team. We focused on rebounding. We made that an emphasis in this game. And they were plus 13. He says some of that was scheme. Some of that was just having David Gasson in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I looked down at my stat sheet. David Gasson had 1 rebound. And you think, okay, how's a guy grabs 1 rebound in 19 minutes, however many minutes he played? How is that a factor on the glass? But it's his ability to be another big body underneath that they were kind of missing. I pointed this out on my instant reaction video. I posted this Saturday night to our YouTube page. We do instant reactions every time we're at a game covering it live. I was there at Bramlage Coliseum Saturday. So David Gasson lets Kansas State play up-tempo more with a true center in the game because he's more of a true 5 than Naquan Tomlin is or than Ish Massoud is.
Yes.
So they can play fast with him at the 5 in a way that they can't if they've got Bebe Igiola out there, who he's a little bigger. He's a little more stout than Gasson.
A little more heft.
But he's not going to run up and down. Like when you're playing him, you have to play a little slower. And that's both ways. Like you can't switch 1 through 5 if Bebe's playing, and you can't really do transition stuff with your big man running the floor. David Gasson can run the floor. So that element, I think, is really, really important. The best version of this Kansas State team has David Gasson playing probably 20, 25 minutes a night at the 5. And as he gets healthier, as he gets in better shape coming off the injury, because he'd only played in 1 game and hadn't started a game since December 21st. As he gets in better shape, I think Kansas State is going to start to continue to evolve because now you've got his presence and it deepens your lineup so that Ish Massoud is making an impact off the bench in a lot of different ways. Desi Sills had a couple of rough games since his big game against KU, but he's going to be a guy that provides you steadiness off the bench. And that depth is real important in the chase for a Big 12 championship. So that, to me, was the one thing you take away from Kansas State's performance. David Gasson matters to that team.
I had two other real quick notes of minimal importance. One, it's funny because K-State still won by a ton. Getting blocked by the rim on two different dunks, very funny. Hilarious, in fact. And again, you won by a bunch, so it's okay.
Yeah, you can laugh about it now, yeah.
The other thing, for those who weren't at the game and watched on TV, Keontae Johnson played for Florida. Did you know he played for Florida? Because Keontae actually started his career at Florida, had a medical issue while he was at Florida. Did you hear, by the way, he played for Florida? We get it. Shut up, Rich Hollenberg. Oh, my God.
Rich Hollenberg and Chris Spatola.
Garbage. Get him out.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's a rough broadcast crew.
3 different times they said K-State was playing for second in the Big 12. Go, look at the standings. Go to the Big 12's official website. K-State was listed first. It drove me nuts. Oh, my God. As someone who, works in this, you and I, we call high school games, Division II college, that level, if we're willing to put in the work, guys who work for big ESPN should be willing to put in the work. But that's a personal beef. The KU game. KU beats Kentucky. It was the best KU has looked in weeks. Easily. Even with a couple wins over Iowa State and Oklahoma, this is the best game front to back KU has played in a couple of weeks. And it was everybody getting in the mix again. KU is at its best, not when Jalen Wilson is playing necessarily like the best player in the country. That's nice, obviously. But that generally means he's shouldering too much of the load. You should not have him in a position where he has to score 30 points to keep you in a game. This weekend, though, Grady Dick. He only made 1 3, but he finished well around the rim, and that 1 3 he made, huge. Made it a 2-score game with under 5 minutes to play. Clutch bucket there with a great pump fake. Awesome play. KJ Adams, hello, welcome back. He was phenomenal in the game. He was great in a game where he was totally undersized. I mean, look at the dude who Kentucky has in the middle, who has not had as good of a year this year as he did last, but is still a monster inside. KJ had a great game. Ernest Uday a dude? Because he played 12 minutes, and they were the best 12 minutes he's had all year against his hardest matchup of the whole season.
Well, Zuby Ejiofor down.
It's got to be Uday now.
Yeah, he better be a dude, or at least he better be able to give KJ Adams some rest and be able to hold his own against some of the bigger teams Kansas is going to see again as the Big 12 schedule wraps back around. But no, that was a really encouraging development. Like you said, it has to be a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's how basketball works, and it's hard to win if you're a 1 or a 2-man show. Kansas was a 5-man show with some a little bit of bench punch in Lexington. And if they're one of the best teams in the country.
And Kevin McCullough continues to slowly, but he is trending upward. He's got to be healthy, though. That is the number one thing, because even if he's not scoring, his defense is incredible. And for this matchup coming up tomorrow night, Sunflower Showdown, biggest game of the year for both KU and K-State up until this point. You got to have him out there guarding, because if he is not, it's going to look way rougher for that KU defense against the very potent Kansas State offense. So that was great to see. I know Kentucky is not great. They're not a great team this year. It's very weird to see them without a little number next to their name on TV, but they had won 4 games in a row and were playing their best basketball of the season. They also, if you had not watched Kentucky all year and had just heard the stories about their offense is not very good and it's clogged up and their guard play is kind of poor, and you just thought, oh, okay, well, that's probably just a storyline. We saw all of that on Saturday. Their guard play stinks. It's really not good. And I don't know why John Calipari loves Severe Wheeler. I don't really get it, but maybe someday, Cal, he'll play well again. It certainly was not on Saturday. We'll get to more college basketball, of course, coming up on tomorrow's show as we get ready for KU versus K-State. Michael Swain will join us tomorrow. Fitz is going to join us on Wednesday to recap the game as well. Should be a blast. We'll have coverage, of course, from Allen Fieldhouse. I'll be there for the game coming up tomorrow. And, of course, all that is coming up on our Twitter, Sports on 580 WIBW, and our YouTube channel by the same name as well. Right now, we need to get to a break for our national and local news at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. We've got a mass quantity of headlines to get to, especially from the NFL front, but other areas as well. Some big Royals news today, and we'll take an early look at the Eagles coming up in Super Bowl 57. It's all next hour on 580 Sports Talk. on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon, Victory Monday afternoon. Thank you so much for being a part of the show with us as we get ready for the build-up to Super Bowl 57. Going to your favorite stadium in the world, Dan. Broken Ankles R Us Stadium.
It's cursed. It's cursed. I will never, ever have a good feeling about a game played at, I guess they call it State Farm Stadium.
That's what it is. I couldn't remember yesterday.
Yep.
State Farm.
It's State Farm Stadium. Now, I know that today because Bengal fan QAnon, who is convinced that the NFL is rigged now because the Chiefs won last night, now thinks one of the reasons that it's obvious that it was the Chiefs who were rigged to win last night's game is because Mahomes and Reed do State Farm commercials and the game's at State Farm Stadium. Not a coincidence. Open your third eye.
Just lunatics.
Absolute tapioca leaking out of their ears instead of brains.
What other games have been at this stadium? So we can go back to Super Bowl
49.
49. Sorry.
Yeah, 49.
Okay, we can move on quickly beyond that. And Super Bowl 42. Okay, Giants over the Patriots. That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. And are those the only two?
I think so.
They are the only two. So this is only the third. That's kind of crazy. It feels like everything is hosted there.
Yeah, they get a lot of events there, but it's not that new. It's not that, brand old a stadium, I guess. So yeah, it's only been around for but so long. Prior to that, there'd been one Super Bowl in Phoenix. Super Bowl 30 was at Sun Devil Stadium, and they were going to host one before that, but there was a whole thing where the state wouldn't acknowledge Martin Luther King Day as a holiday.
Yeah, whole thing.
A whole thing. And the NFL kind of pulled back for a few years. Didn't let them have that Super Bowl.
I get it. I understand.
There's actually NFL Network did a really interesting hour and a half documentary about that whole thing. Kind of interesting.
Very interesting. By the way, here's an interesting question for you, just while I have the list of Super Bowls up in front of me. Do you know how many including Super Bowl 50? So in the last 8 Super Bowls, including the one in 2 weeks, do you know how many referees have been the head ref for multiple Super Bowls?
I'm going to say
the last 8.
8,
including this year.
I'm going to say, when did Hockey Lee retire? He's been out of the game for a minute, huh?
Yeah. And then
are you going to tell me that Cheffers is the first repeat ref in 8 years?
Ed Hockley, in fact, he refed well beyond this. He hasn't refed one since Super Bowl 38.
More famous than good, I guess.
Yes, certainly true. Remember after the replacement ref fiasco where he came out and was like, haha, I bet you missed us. And then people booed him right away. Awesome. Yeah, it's only happened once. And this is going to be Carl Cheffers' 3rd Super Bowl in 8 years. No one else has done more than one. Clete Blakeman, Gene Steratore, John Perry. Most of these guys are on TV now.
Yeah, the last 2 are.
Bill Vinovich, and last year was Ron Torbert.
Yeah, Ron Torbert and his crew, they did a
real bang-up job.
Whale of a job at Arrowhead last night. Yeah, none of them are good.
Yeah, that's bizarre, man. That's real weird. That's very weird. All refs are bad. And again, caveat, I don't mean prep sports refs. That's different. We appreciate what you guys do. Anything higher than that, jail.
ARAB.
Yes, correct. If you don't know that acronym, use Google.
You don't need to be as online as us.
Coming up this hour here on 580 Sports Talk, we will get some more Super Bowl talk in a little bit. We do know who the Chiefs are playing. They're going to play the Philadelphia Eagles coming up in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks' time.
Is it the Kelsey Bowl? Is it the Andy Reid Bowl? Is it the Dick Vermeil Bowl?
I think it is more so the Kelsey Bowl.
Yeah.
Do you know how insane? I've said this a couple times in the last few weeks, and I think my wife at this point is like, yeah, I know you've said that over and over and over again. But do you know how incredible it is to have 2 brothers who are Hall of Fame NFL players? How freakish those genes and smarts have to be. It's just outrageous.
There's not really a lot of historical comparison for what the Kelseys are and what they've accomplished. And it's cool that they have such a great relationship. So it's fun. It's not if it were people with maybe different personalities. You know, you'd get a lot of playing it close to the vest. No, Jason and Travis are going to have so much fun the next 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to have a blast with this.
Absolutely.
And that's what it should be, right?
Yeah. No, it really should be. The best. So they're the best brother combo of all time?
In the NFL?
NFL?
I think.
Number 2, give me the Sharps.
Yeah, Shannon and Sterling. I don't know how great the Selmans were as NFL players. Leroy Selman was great.
Well, yeah.
Wow,
yeah, there's a whole list from the Pro Football Hall of Fame of brothers who played in the NFL. A lot of these people I do not remember. Like 2 guys who played a combined 3 seasons in the mid-2000s for the Raiders and Chargers. Don't even put them on the list.
The Big O Tires text line lighting up, reminding us that there was a certain quarterbacking duo that is inescapable.
I don't know who they're talking about.
Yeah, never heard of those.
Never heard of.
Minnings? Is that how that's pronounced? Minnings?
Ah, yes, Cooper. Yeah, okay.
They're pretty high on the list. But like, is he like? I don't want to do the Eli going to the Hall of Fame debate. I don't want to do that. Let's not do that.
Okay.
Very accomplished. Peyton's obviously already in, but like Travis and Jason are arguably the best players at their respective positions in their generations.
Do you know how hard it is to be all pro at center in general, let alone multiple times, let alone 4 times? That's outrageous, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
4 times. He is undoubtedly a Hall of Famer, and I think Travis pretty obviously is too.
We're not doing the Eli Manning debate today. So
okay.
Yeah. I don't
hold off on that.
I don't feel like it.
We're not too far from that, by the way.
No, we're not.
Is it next year?
I think it is.
Oh man. Oh man.
Gross.
That is the sports talk radio host's dream right there.
Maybe yours, and make me sick.
The generic one. Man, can you imagine how much content Francesa is going to get out of that? A year's worth. Whole year of it. We are going to talk again more Super Bowl a little bit later on. We'll also get to some Royals news later on in the hour. We won't get to that in headlines, but speaking of, let's get right to it. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can go visit them online at blue.kansas.com. Hit them up to have them come check out your house. Make sure all of your heating, cooling, and plumbing are all in tip-top shape as the weather continues to get weirder and weirder, and it is freezing freaking cold out right now. Yesterday, I had to go take the trash out. Oh, my God. Awful. I needed to bundle up far more. I was not prepared for it. So make sure your home's prepared for it. Hit up our friends at blue.kansas.com. Number 1 headline for me, we've got the update on Brock Purdy and his health situation after he injured his elbow yesterday in the NFC Championship game. Unfortunately for the potential future superstar quarterback, it is not good. According to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy suffered a complete tear of the ulnar collateral ligament, the UCL, in his throwing elbow and will undergo surgery. He is getting second opinions, but the initial hope is he can undergo a repair, not a full reconstruction, and will be ready for training camp. So that'd be about 6 months. Repairing it, not as intense as full Tommy John surgery, which we know about from baseball more than anything. Salvador Perez had Tommy John. Bryce Harper had Tommy John surgery, so he could hit the whole season. He just couldn't throw. He couldn't play the field.
Right.
Shohei Ohtani as well, just a couple years ago, had the same thing. Obviously, as a quarterback, you kind of need to be able to throw the ball. So that's a big deal. Pelissero also adds this in a second tweet. This explains why Brock Purdy couldn't throw after taking a nasty hit in the NFC Championship game, a warrior for even getting back on the field. He came back out after Josh Johnson got a concussion, handed the ball off, and I said, oh, yeah, this is a nightmare. And a couple plays later, after they punted a couple times back and forth, it's 3rd down. Purdy drops back. You knew it was a screen. The whole world knew he was not going to throw the ball down the field. It looked like he took everything in his power to throw the ball 3 yards. And I told my wife, I said, oh, yeah, he can't do it. It's all over. I thought they had brought the 3rd quarterback rule back. Like, they had to bring him in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise both quarterbacks were out for the game.
No, I was with you. I thought that was I didn't realize they took that rule away.
Yeah. Because that has come up in a championship game before. It happened to the Bears against the Packers in the 2010 NFC Championship
Caleb
game.
Haney game.
Caleb
right?
Haney.
Yeah.
They put him in so Jake Cutler couldn't come back in the game. No, that rule doesn't exist anymore. So I'd be corrected about that. But Yeah, that sucks for Brock Purdy. That really, really sucks.
Yeah, it's a real bummer, and it leaves the 49ers in such an awkward place. Like, they've got Purdy cheap, and they've got Trey Lance still on his rookie deal. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo, but that's a lot of uncertainty at the quarterback spot going into next season when you've got a roster around that can win a championship. And that's obviously a difficult spot. You feel bad for Purdy, too, who, by all accounts, good kid.
Yeah.
Good head on his shoulders, and was a great story. Man, Kyle Shanahan's got to own part of this, because why are you single blocking Hassan Reddick or not blocking Hassan Reddick?
Well, to be fair to Kyle Shanahan, it is the playoffs, so I just kind of expect that that's going to happen.
I am not a accomplished NFL coach, but I would like to recommend to Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, block Hassan Reddick with somebody, and not a backup tight end either. Like, one of your tackles needs to block that guy.
Can we really quickly mention the Arizona Cardinals drafted him to be an inside linebacker?
Mm-hmm. Turn him into a coverage linebacker. Yeah.
They did the same thing with Isaiah Simmons for 2 years.
Yeah, that's why they're the Cardinals.
And then all of a sudden this year, wow, this dude's really good. He's really blossoming. Yeah, because he's not being put in a wrong position. Idiot franchise. By the way, talking about brothers, we've got a nomination for the Barber twins on YouTube as well. Very good.
Yeah.
Rondé in the Hall of Fame now.
Is he?
I think he just went in this past year.
Yeah, I think you're right. Tiki,
or maybe he's a finalist.
I think he was a finalist. I don't think he's in yet. I don't think Tiki's going to get in either.
No.
Tiki
didn't make a whole lot of friends at the end of his career.
No. It's some off the field stuff.
Yeah. I was watching an episode
Nothing illegal, just like really uncool.
I don't remember which city it was. I was watching some episode of The Real Housewives with my wife at one point. Tiki Barber showed up. His partner, ex-wife or something was on the show. They were like hanging out with Tiki Barber. Thought, hey, did you know he slept with an intern who worked at NBC? It's like, wait, what?
Walked out on his pregnant wife to be with her?
Yeah, not a great guy.
No,
not a great guy.
I got to believe Tiki Barber turns on the TV every morning and sees Michael Strahan and thinks, that should have been me.
Oh, yeah. All the time. Calls his cable provider, please do not give me ABC or Fox. Thank you.
Let's talk coaching carousel in the NFL as we continue on our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. We'll start with some coordinator news. The Los Angeles Chargers have a new offensive coordinator, and it is Kellen Moore, the former Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator, who the Cowboys let go over the weekend. Moore did not spend much time on the breadlines.
Let him go in the middle of the first quarter of the AFC Championship game.
That was yesterday.
All-time news dump.
So the 33-year-old Moore will get to work with Justin Herbert next year, and that is good news for Justin Herbert, because whatever you think of Kellen Moore, he is not Joe Lombardi. So this is a upgrade for the Chargers moving forward. Again, no matter what you think of Kellen Moore, there are a lot of people who like him. I think there are some Cowboys fans who don't, because you got to scapegoat somebody, I guess. But it is on LA for Kellen Moore, and I think he's going to be a head coach eventually. He got some interviews in this cycle. One good year with Justin Herbert, like one playoff win with Justin Herbert, he'll be somebody's head coach in 2024.
Absolutely.
Speaking of coordinators getting head coaching interviews, the Arizona Cardinals today requested interviews with both of the coordinators of the AFC runners-up, the Cincinnati Bengals. That's offensive coordinator Brian Callahan and defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. Anarumo's name had not really come up in the coaching search process, and Callahan's name had only recently started to come up. So I guess teams may be waiting, or the Bengals maybe not allowing those coordinators to interview while they were in the midst of a playoff push. But now with the Bengals done, Anarumo and Callahan will both get interviews with the Cardinals. Meanwhile, the Houston Texans are moving towards picking their next head coach. It sounds like they have narrowed their sights on San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans. Ryans was very high on Denver's list. According to the legendary Denver newspaper writer Woody Page, Ryans has informed the Broncos that he will not be taking their head coaching job. So it looks like DeMeco Ryans would rather be the coach of the Houston Texans than Coach Russell Wilson.
You know, I get it. He played in Houston. He was beloved in Houston. He was an awesome player. That's a really good move, I think, for Houston. They got to get the right offensive guy, because they're going to end up with C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young in all likelihood, or they end up with Will Levis, which would be hilariously bad, like comically awful for them.
But DeMeco Ryans would rather end up in that situation,
yeah,
than coach Russell Wilson and have no cap space and very little draft capital. Like the Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett in December. They fired him with 2 games left in the regular season to get a jump on this whole process. And they wanted Sean Payton, and that doesn't look like that's going to happen. Either because Payton doesn't want it or because the Broncos don't have the first-round picks that Saints owner Mickey Loomis wants in compensation for Sean Payton. But that is very much starting to lose momentum. They wanted Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh told them no. They circled back, and Greg Penner, part of the ownership group for the Broncos, was in Ann Arbor over the weekend begging Jim Harbaugh to reconsider. And that's not happening. Jim Harbaugh has told the Broncos no twice. The Broncos are now down to like Ajero Evero, who was their defensive coordinator, who gave up a 50 ball in the game that got Nathaniel Hackett fired.
And
like
chose not to even be the interim coach?
Yes, the Broncos cannot turn around and hire Ajero Evero and be a serious franchise.
No.
I think we are at the point where the Denver Broncos are no longer serious.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say at this point.
I mean,
yeah,
as if the losing and tying themselves to the millstone that is Russell Wilson's remaining years, as I've taken to calling them the limited years of Mr. Unlimited, as if that wasn't bad enough, they are now conducting a coaching search. They got to jump on other teams by firing their guy early, and it still looks like this. They're still waiting another 2 weeks so they can interview Jonathan Gannon and Eric Bieniemy. Like the whole thing was, well, we got to get an experienced head coach in there. You're going to hire another first-year guy, another first-timer?
It's got to be Bieniemy, right?
I mean,
I kind of feel like that's where this might be trending.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah,
it'd be very and I'd be happy for EB because he deserves it.
Yeah,
he deserves the opportunity. But right now, all the available evidence points to that Denver job just isn't very good.
No, it's
and
really not.
The coaches who have options, they don't want it.
No. Would you want to be tied to that?
No.
Your success is tied to that guy? No, absolutely not. By the way, do you know the last head coaching job that Lou Anarumo interviewed for?
It's University of Kansas, wasn't it?
It was the University of Kansas. He was referred to by Jeff, and we know this because Jeff Long was deposed in the David Beatty lawsuit.
Yeah.
Quote, the defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm going to forget his name as well. That was Lou Anarumo back in 2020.
I'm sure
2019.
I'm sure that made Lou feel great.
Oh, I bet.
He went through a sham interview with Jeff Long.
By the way, the other people who interviewed for that job, I love reliving this. What a absolute travesty. Along with Les Miles, who got the job. Todd Graham or Grantham. He didn't remember which one. 2 very different failed football coaches. Extremely different. As well as, quote, I'm struggling with his name. He was working for the LA Rams at the time. That is current Arizona head coach Jed Fish.
Oh, my God.
How do you, that's a memorable name.
Yeah.
Fish? Easy to remember.
Shout out to the texter from the 785 and the Big O Tires text line who just suggested that the Broncos take a look at the Panthers interim coach, Steve Wilkes, who was not chosen by the Carolina Panthers to be their head coach. Steve Wilkes deserves like a real second chance because his 1 year in Arizona, he had a terrible roster, a terrible GM, and Josh Rosen at quarterback. Like that's not a real chance.
Yeah.
And then he got Carolina to play really hard for him this past year. They went 6-6 after a 1-5 start. And Carolina chose not to hire him, which defensible. Like they want a quarterback whisperer. And they went and hired Frank Reich. Like that's what the owner wanted. That's what he went and got. But
hometown ties too. I get it.
Like, honestly, if the Broncos turned around and hired Steve Wilkes, I'd give him credit, but
they'd try. Like the effort would be there.
That would be as good a hire as they could make at this stage
because
all their big ones are telling them no. Jim Harbaugh told them no twice. Jim Harbaugh's under NCAA investigation, and he has told the Broncos thanks, but no thanks twice. No, I would rather deal with this NCAA investigation into me slamming a couple of hamburgers at a Ann Arbor restaurant with my players.
Which, by the way, I'm in trouble for because I keep lying to the NCAA. Let's not forget that part. He would rather just keep lying through his teeth to the NCAA than deal with Russell Wilson. That's worse than D'Amico Ryans, I think, by far.
I think it is, too.
Another headline for me, this is from WSCR Radio in Chicago, The Score, the Danny Parkins and Matt Spiegel show. One of those names probably familiar to people in the greater Topeka, Kansas City area. Patrick Mahomes' father, Pat Mahomes, told the Parkinson Spiegel show today that the Bears told Mahomes they were going to draft him number 3 overall in 2018. He thought he was going to be a Bear. Quote, once they traded up and got Mitch, it kind of hurt him. It really did. I just thought that was pretty funny.
It is. It's extremely funny. I've got one more headline here.
Hit me with it.
Out of Kansas headline. It is the AP Top 25 Men's College Basketball Rankings. We have a unanimous number 1 in the country, the Purdue Boilermakers, all 62 first place votes this week. They are on an 8-game winning streak, and they are the first team all season to be the unanimous number 1 in the AP poll. The rest of the top 5, Tennessee, Houston, Alabama, and Arizona. Alabama had been number 2 last week, fell only 2 spots after they got poleaxed by Oklahoma on Saturday.
That's interesting.
Virginia 6th. Kansas State is 7th, dropping 2 spots after a week that saw them lose to the number 12 team in the country on the road before rebounding to beat Florida at home. Kansas is ranked 8th. K-State being ranked higher than KU going into a trip to Allen Fieldhouse. Been a while since that's been the case.
Oh, yeah.
At least a decade, I believe.
It's justified, though.
It is.
It is definitely justified. That might change tomorrow night, but as of right now, absolutely justified.
UCLA 9th, Texas 10th. That's your top 10. 11 through 15, Baylor, Gonzaga, Iowa State, Marquette, and TCU. So that's 6 Big 12 teams in the top 15 in the country. Xavier, Providence, St. Mary's, Florida Atlantic, and Clemson rounding out the top 20.
Hoot, hoot!
Florida Atlantic Owls, 21-1.
Longest win streak in the country. 20 straight wins.
Tied with Purdue for the fewest losses in the nation. And then rounding out the top 25, 21st through 25th, Indiana, San Diego State, Miami, UConn, and Auburn.
Auburn took a big tumble after losing to West Virginia. Holy cow.
Yeah, that was
10 spots.
Yeah, that was a surprising one. By the way, you know who's still you got 6 top 15 teams in the Big 12. 6 of the top 15 are in the Big 12. You know who's still 20th in the KenPom rankings out of the Big 12? It's West Virginia.
Is it still West Virginia?
West Virginia is still a top 20 team in KenPom.
That's wild.
K-State's 25th.
That's crazy, man. That is really crazy. Holy cow. West Virginia still got tournament hopes. They barely beat Auburn. They melted. Eric Stevenson had to have the game of his life, but they're still alive for that.
I feel like they have the best chance of the bottom 4 in the league right now of making the NCAA tournament. That doesn't mean that them and another team can't make it.
Yeah,
but I feel like it's them, then Oklahoma State, then Oklahoma, and then Texas Tech.
OSU over OU. Interesting.
Yeah.
Texas Tech ain't getting it.
No. They are money line favorites tonight against Iowa State at home.
Something's very fishy about that.
Yeah.
Something's very fishy about that. I don't like that one bit. By the way, one real quick note. We do have a change in the on the football coaching staff at K-State. Wide receivers coach Thad Ward is finalizing a deal to become the running backs coach at Illinois. Ward had previously coached at Illinois from 2016 to 2018 and had been at a few other schools, including Temple, NIU, and Western Michigan in the past. I would argue he did a pretty darn good job with K-State's wide receivers the last couple of years, specifically this year.
Yeah, he certainly did. Big part of that staff, and that is a big loss for a guy who actually is going back to Illinois. He had previously been the running backs coach there, 2016 to 2018.
That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can visit them online at blue.kansas.com. When we come back on the other side of the break, we'll take a look back at the NFC Championship game and the Chiefs' opponent in Super Bowl 57, the Philadelphia Eagles. It's all coming up here in just a moment on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this penultimate day of the month of January. Thank you so much for spending some of your afternoon hours with us. Coming up at the top of the hour, we've got the 580 Preps High School Girls Basketball Coaches Club. 7 city coaches joining me this evening to talk all things girls high school hoops. Well, 3 different tournament winners from the city in 3 different classes. Hayden girls, 4A, they won the Wellsville Top Gun. 5A, Seaman beat an incredible field at the Glacier's Edge down in Emporia. Won on a buzzer-beating 3 in the championship game Saturday. And the Topeka High girls with a very impressive run to win the Firebird Classic in Lawrence at Free State High as well. So we'll talk to all 3 of those coaches and 4 others from around the city coming up tonight at 6 o'clock on the 580 Preps High School Girls Basketball Coaches Club. By the way, one other headline for you, not necessarily sports related, but if you've ever been on an airplane significant, the mayor of Kansas City, Quentin Lucas, announced today, February 28th is when the new airport terminal opens.
Very excited for that.
It looks very cool from this clip from KNBC TV in Kansas City. It looks very new and not like crap. So that's nice. I am part of the, vocal minority who didn't hate old KCI. I don't care if there's amenities. I'll bring a candy bar in my bag. Like, get me in, get me out. I could show up like 45 minutes before a flight and I could just walk through security. It was awesome.
Yeah, that is one thing that KCI has going for it over, say, DIA.
Yeah, you and I both, you've been to DIA many more times than I have. Neither of us have had very good experiences there recently, though.
No.
Coming home from...
My last couple of experiences have not been real good.
Yeah, that's true.
Although, it's more the airline's fault than the airport.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose for mine as well. I had a flight canceled and had a day off my honeymoon because of it, but that's fine. I'm not bitter about it. Do want to get to the NFC Championship game. Thought this could be a really fun matchup between the 49ers and the Eagles, to the point where at certain sports books, the 49ers were getting heavy juice on the game, +3 at a certain sports book that will remain nameless because they are not friends financially with us. But it was -120 for them +3 yesterday, right before kickoff, a significant number. Then Brock Purdy got hurt and the game was over. Any sense that the game could be even competitive was gone. It was out the window. It was over. It was done. Blah. And that kind of sucks.
Like when you're playing online, like video games, you offer your opponent like a friendly quit. Like, yeah, I'm up on you real big. Do you just not want to play the rest of this and just call it a friendly quit, forfeit? Like, that's what both coaches should have agreed to by the time the third quarter rounded the bend into the fourth quarter. There's no reason to play that fourth quarter. No. Absolutely none. There's really no reason to play second half, honestly. It just had the feel of a game where both teams were just trying to get to the finish, just trying to sim to end, if I can use another video game metaphor, and just get to the end because it wasn't competitive. My gut feeling, we didn't have a long show on Friday. I picked the Eagles to win. I felt like they were going to beat up Brock Purdy, and they broke Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
That's how the game was unfolding. They were, and that's how the rest of the game really unfolded too, is the Eagles were dominant up front both ways. And that's hard to be against the San Francisco 49ers because that's how they've really made it work throughout this year, despite not having a superstar quarterback. They've had, Brock Purdy has made it work with the weapons he's got, but San Francisco dominates up front. That's how they beat you. And Philadelphia bullied them in the trenches all game long. That's the thing that stands out about the Eagles. They are damn good up front on offense. Even though Lane Johnson's got a torn groin he's playing with, he's still as good as any right tackle you want to name.
Yep.
And defensively, they just come at you in waves with guys, with different pass rushers, with different personnel sets. They just come at you in waves, and the pass rush has time to get there because they have 2 really good corners on the outside. I don't think they played a team as good as Kansas City. I don't think they played a quarterback as good as Mahomes in a while, but they are awfully impressive up front, and their running game is a major, major factor.
Few people, if you follow any NFL writers, and I don't mean, our local beat writers or our friends in the Chiefs beat corps or whatever, but people who cover the whole NFL for a living, Matt Verderame is among them. We heard from him earlier on. The guys at The Ringer, The Athletic, etc., have done a lot of writing today about how the Eagles somehow were able to solve the 49ers defense that had not allowed a 70-yard rusher in 10 weeks or something. and they tore him up defensively. And there's also an element of that game, if we're being fair. It's not just the offense for the 49ers that ended up being completely hamstrung. If you're a defensive player, you're Eric Armstead, okay, Fred Warner, someone like that. You're standing on the sideline and you see Brock Purdy's elbow explode and then hear him at one point tell Kyle Shanahan, and they showed this on the Fox broadcast, say, I can't throw it.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably thinking, oh, great. So we're going to need to score multiple defensive touchdowns to even have a chance in this game. Awesome place to be. You're probably going to suffer a little bit of a letdown in terms of your effort and performance too. Not that anyone would blame you for that, but it affects everybody when you see a quarterback get injured like that. But the Eagles still took advantage. They ran the ball well. Kenneth Gainwell, Miles Sanders, obviously Jalen Hurts. They've got really talented receivers. I know that Devonta Smith catch didn't count. They waived it. Well, it did count, even though it shouldn't have counted. He's a stud. He is so good. A.J. Brown is awesome. Dallas Goedert is a very good tight end. Their offensive line is great. It's a very old school thing to say. It is very cliched to a point, but games really are won in the trenches, and that is why the Eagles have won so many games this year, because they have dominated up front. And Ndamukong Suh is not the player he was in 2012, but when that guy is like defensive tackle number 4 on your depth chart,
Right.
a pretty good spot to be in.
Yeah.
He can still play. He was getting plenty of pressure yesterday. He's the one who hit Josh Johnson on the play he got concussed on.
Yeah. They just, like I said, come at you in waves. They got so many guys. They got so much depth. There's a reason they had, 80 sacks? 70 sacks in the regular season, something like that.
75, I think.
Yeah, just a impressive on both sides of the ball. We got 2 weeks to break it down, and there's a lot of things that are going to evolve, and there are a lot of questions, and there are questions for both sides about health. Certainly for the Chiefs, they lost so many guys. They lost 3 wide receivers. They lost Willie Gay. They lost L'Jarius Sneed to injury in the course of last night's game. How healthy are those guys going to be? They've got a week off. That'll help. That'll be big. But we won't know probably until Tuesday, Wednesday. We won't start getting a feel for just how healthy those guys are going to be. Mahomes will get a week off of his ankle. That should help quite a bit because he was pretty awesome on one leg last night. If they give him 2, if he's got 2 working legs, 2 working ankles on Super Bowl Sunday, I'm going to like the Chiefs' chances regardless. But to me, this seems like a very simple equation for the Chiefs. You have to make the game about Jalen Hurts. You have to make the game about Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. You have to minimize the other factors in this game, the Eagles run game, the Eagles pass rush, and you have to make this game about who makes more plays from under center. Because if it's that, I think the Chiefs will win. If it's not, if it's about the Eagles just playing bully ball for 60 minutes, it's going to be hard for Kansas City.
Initial thought right off the rip. The Eagles are favored right now, but who should be favored right now?
So it opened as a pick'em and it went to Eagles -2. I think with the
in a heartbeat, by the way.
I think with the injury situation, that's probably fair. I think Eagles -2, -2.5 is probably a fair opening line. I wouldn't be surprised if that moves a lot. And as we learn more about the Chiefs, the last Super Bowl to jump the fence was Seahawks-Patriots. Seahawks ended up underdogs, and then they lost the game, but they opened as favorites, and then the line jumped the fence to the Patriots. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that. If there's good reports about Sneed and Juju, and there's no worry about Kelsey, and Mahomes is feeling better, by the time 2 Sundays from now rolls around, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs are favored. But right now, I think it's fair to have the Eagles open as favorites.
Has it moved at all since it dropped to Eagles -2?
Best of my knowledge, no, because it did. It opened most places as a pick'em. I'm checking with our pals at FanDuel. Right now, it is Philadelphia -1.5. So already coming back towards the middle.
Look, if you're it's the same thing I always lean toward when it comes to college basketball and KU. You're going to give me Bill Self with points. Yeah, give me that line. I don't care what it is. You're going to give me Patrick Mahomes with some points and Andy Reid with some points. Yeah, I'm going to take that every time. Absolutely, I'm going to take that.
Also, the over-under opened, I believe, at 50. It is down to 49.5. I get the under while you could.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well.
Kind of have the same feel that I did about Kansas City, Cincinnati, where you look at, oh, these are 2 really good offenses, but I think line play, trench play is going to be really decisive in this game. My early read on this is that they're not going to be a lot of points.
We're going to take another break. On the other side of this timeout, though, some news for the Royals, an old friend coming back yet again. We'll talk about that next on 580 Sports Talk. Tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk from 3 until 6. We've obviously got plenty of Super Bowl to get to. Chiefs versus Eagles preview. We'll also preview the Sunflower Showdown, KU versus K-State. Here's a little trivia question for you, by the way, Dan. Can you name the only team in the country that has 2 players on the Wooden National Player of the Year Award mid-season top 20 watch list? Only one team has 2 players on it.
Is it Kansas State?
It is Kansas State. Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson are both on it. Jalen Wilson from KU, obviously, on the list as well. Drew Timmy is on this list. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Get out of my face. He's not a dumb, stupid. Anyway, we'll talk more basketball coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk from 3 until 6 right here on 580 WIBW and on YouTube Sports on 580 WIBW. Some big news from the Royals world today. It was reported early this morning by KCSP Radio in Kansas City. The Royals are working to bring back Zach Greinke. This has since been reported by pretty much everyone else. I believe Ken Rosenthal at The Athletic had something about it. John Heyman at MLB Network, he also had something about it. This is going to happen. The Royals are likely to announce it tomorrow once the physical is all finished up. This is a good signing for the Royals, I think. Well-liked player, beloved player to a degree. There's a certain level of quality you're going to get with a Greinke start. Not, you're not signing Randy Johnson here, but you're getting 5 to 6 innings every game. You're getting probably not a ton of runs allowed, not going to be a ton of strikeouts, but he's going to eat up enough innings, and in all likelihood, he's going to keep you in the game. You're going to have a competitive baseball game with this lineup and with Zach Greinke on the mound. And to be completely honest with you, maybe this is just the beaten down person who's been following the Royals in all the years since they were last good, right?
Right.
I started in August late August of 2017. That was the last time they were even competitive in the American League. They have sucked so badly ever since I've been here. So maybe I'm the curse. I'm sorry. I didn't hire Dayton Moore, though. Anyway, I'm just being competitive and watchable is a win for me. So by adding Greinke back, that accomplishes that. So I'll take it.
So the one thing that Zach Greinke does that makes his starts more pleasurable to watch than, insert any Royal starter from last year here. He throws strikes, throws the ball over the plate. He walked less than 2 guys per 9 innings for the 5th straight season last year.
I'll take that.
27 walks in 137 innings pitched. His career walks per 9 is an even 2.0. Wow. He is a strike throwing merchant, and he can still do that. He can still get that job done, change speeds, keep the ball down, get ground balls, keep it in the yard, give you 5 innings, maybe 6, and vacate the way for the bullpen. And you add to that he's valuable in terms of his leadership, valuable in terms of his knowledge. If the Royals want to have an example of how to prepare, of how to work your way through a lineup, of how to bluff and shuffle your way through 2 times through a lineup without having your best stuff, and be an example for these young pitchers that they're still hoping put something together as they get further and further away from their prospect status, then Greinke's a great role model to have around. And I think that's the biggest reason that you bring him back. I wonder if the Royals will toy with the idea of a 6-man rotation for the coming season, because Greinke is not a guy who's going to take the ball every 5 days and give you 6-7 innings like he used to be, but he might be able to give you 6 or 7 if he's taking the ball with 5 days rest instead of 4. Ryan Yarbrough has been a guy with Tampa Bay who's familiar with working on a lot of rest, not being on that traditional 5-man rotation. Jordan Lyles has been real durable. Maybe you maintain that durability by giving him an extra day off. And then that creates opportunities for more of those young guys to get starts, because that's what they need. They need innings. They need opportunities. And if you limit yourself to now you're down to one name, like if you were opening the season tomorrow for the Royals, you'd have Brady Singer and you'd have Jordan Lyles, you'd have Ryan Yarbrough, you'd have Zach Greinke. You only got one spot in a 5-man rotation, and you're going to have that up for grabs between 5 or 6 guys. Now, it makes more sense to have 2 spots available for 5 or 6 guys to fight for, and maybe rotate through and get those guys some experience without overexposure. So I wonder if they might toy with that idea, go with a 6-man rotation and see where that takes them, at least in the early stages of the season.
Would that be a year-long thing, or would that be all right, let's adjust after the first 40 games thing?
I would start the year that way, honestly. I mean, yeah, I guess you don't have to, because you get all those off days early on in the season. And I'm talking myself out of it, at least in the start of the season. You don't really need it, and you don't want to run guys out there that you don't have to. You want to be, make a feint toward being competitive in April. But as the idea becomes to be more developmental as the season goes on, because this is not going to be a contending baseball team, then you go to 6-man and you give, Bubic or Heasley or Castillo or
Hernandez,
Lynch. You give those guys a couple extra starts here and there.
All right, right now, if it is a 5-man rotation, it's set, right? It's not in this order necessarily, but it's Singer. I would say Lynch, Greinke, Lyles, and Yarbrough.
Yeah, I would. Lynch is at the top of my list, just stuff wise.
Yeah.
I'd have him, and then
he's got the most promise.
I'd have him, and then I'd have Heasley, because I think he's got the repertoire, being a 4-pitch guy.
Okay.
And I think it's time to try Bubic in the bullpen. But God, how many lefties are you going to carry in the bullpen?
Only lefties.
Nothing but southpaws.
We are going to throw so many lefties at you, you're not going to be able to think straight.
I'm going to call the Royals bullpen the Leftorium.
Maybe that is your new market inefficiency. You want to be run like the Royals? Let's do some stuff no one else is thinking about. We're going to have a 6-man rotation, and we're not going to have any right-handed relief pitchers. Try us now. What are you going to do about that, Guardians? Add a bunch of righties. I don't know. What do you want? No, I mean, this is cool though. I want them to be at least watchable, because they really have not been for too many long stretches in recent years. So I'm happy with the Greinke deal. And again, assume the team is going to announce that in full coming up sometime tomorrow. With that, we've got one more commercial break we've got to get to. We'll come back. We've got the final word to wrap things up on 580 Sports Talk. No final word like a Victory Monday final word, and we'll get you on to take you home and take you into the Coaches Club tonight. Dan, you're first.
There's a great line from the series finale of the TV show The Office, where the character Andy Bernard, played by Ed Helms, says, "I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them." Chiefs fans, be very, very aware. You are in the good old days. 3 Super Bowls in 4 years has only been accomplished 8 other times in the history of the National Football League. So to accomplish this and to do it with a quarterback who is arguably just now entering his prime and may wind up as the undisputed best to ever do it. He's certainly the undisputed best to be doing it right now. These are the good old days. Savor it. Drink it in. Your favorite team is the center of the sports universe for the next 2 weeks, and there's no better feeling as a sports fan than that.
The AFC Championship game was a great game. It was a fun game. It was certainly entertaining, and for someone who didn't have an emotional stake in it necessarily, although I like when the Chiefs win for work purposes and for you on the other side of the mic and on the other side of the camera purposes. And I like Joe Burrow, but I didn't have an emotional investment in either of those teams. It was a great game. It was a fun game. There's a lot to break down. There's a lot to talk about. So if anyone comes up to you, Chiefs fan, and says, we only won because of the refs, just say, okay, smile, nod, turn around and walk away because they are not worth your time. That discussion is not worth your energy, and that conversation is not worth a single fleeting breath. Do not waste your time on people who are putting this all on referees. Put it on the Kansas City Chiefs because they earned it, and they earned that trip back to the Super Bowl coming up in 2 weeks' time. Coming up at the top of the hour, we've got the 580 Preps High School Girls Basketball Coaches Club. Tomorrow, Michael Swain will join us. We will preview the Sunflower Showdown, and of course, we will get to more on previewing Super Bowl 57 between the Chiefs and the Eagles. That's all coming up tomorrow and tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. And until next time, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This is 580 Sports Talk.